Now there's a wall between us, something that's been lost. I took too much for granted and got my signals crossed. And just as things did all began on a long forgotten morn, come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from this storm. Well, the deputy walks on hard nails, the preacher rides a mount, but nothing really matters much, is doom alone that counts. And the one-eyed undertaker, he blows a futile horn. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. I've heard newborn babies wailing like a morning dove, and old men with broken teeth stranded without love. And do I understand the question, man? Is it hopeless and forlorn? Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. Hilltop village, they gambled for my clothes. I bargained for salvation, and they gave me a lethal dose. I offered up my innocence, and God repaid with scorn. Come in, she said, I'll give you a shelter from the storm. I'm living in a foreign country, but I'm bound to cross the line. Beauty walks a razor's edge, someday I'll make it mine. If I could only turn back the clock to when God and her were born. Come in, she said, I'll give you a shelter from the storm. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from this storm.
Sorry, I was supposed to finish that with more Juness. I'm just going to bring our special guest in a sec. But we've got this special on Christmas Day with my great friend here, Damien. To all those people who are going to have a difficult day today due to maybe people not allowing other people to come over, family and friends, division and stuff. And so I thought of that song, Shelter from the Storm. And if you were stuck in a storm, in a shelter in a storm, and you wanted some good company, you could go no further than having Graham Hood. Hey, Graham.
Hey guys, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas to you. And the show here, Darren Goldman, if you're out there, my mum won't let us in the house, and so my kids are disturbed. This is why we're having the show today. I approached Graham and I said, look, a lot of people are probably going to have a very difficult day, and I thought maybe we could cheer them up at the end of the day. Topher's going to come in a bit later, and maybe Richard and a few others. And Graham just said, yeah, absolutely. So we're blessed to have him on. And hey, Graham, how was your day?
Today was, for me, it was a bittersweet kind of day because I'm thinking about all of our mates in the new tribe who are doing it tough today. And I thought today would be a tough day for us as well. But my daughter and her husband and our 6-year-old twins made it all the way from WA and got here for Christmas. And they've unpacked the trailer into our place. They're living here. And we had Christmas with 2 of our 21 grandkids unwrapping presents. And So today was great. And I also had a Zoom at 11 o'clock this morning with a whole bunch of people who weren't having a good day, which was also awesome because we got to share the love and share some good stories. And all day I've been looking forward to this. So today's been a good day for me.
That's gorgeous. That's really lovely. How did they get across from WA?
Well, the South Australian government said no, and they kept persisting and said, please let us go. My husband's going to have a job to start over there very shortly, and they wanted all kinds of letters and confirmations and all that sort of stuff. And then they said, they rang the hotline and they said, can you please let us through the border? And I said, have you been double, whatted? And they said, no, we haven't. And they said, oh, well, we'll get back to you. They started to get belligerent. Anyhow, Rod Culleton, Great Australian Party, heard that I was trying to get him across. And he said, that's no worries. You know what he's like. He'll take anybody on. He said, that's no worries. I'll take Rufus, the big campaign bus. We'll drive across the Nullarbor. They can follow me and I'll get them through. I'll bluster my way through against the cops. And what happened was that he tried to get mainstream media to cover it, and mainstream media let the cops know. And it seems like the day before they got to the border, the cops pulled the barriers down and abandoned the border because they didn't want a confrontation. So when they got there was no one on the border, so they kept driving, and now they're here. So, I mean, it's been the most amazing saga, and following it over the last week has just been incredible. But you know what? I love God, and God's got a plan. We just got to have more faith, and there were hundreds of thousands of people praying for him. So awesome!
It was a good day to have faith. His son was born today, so
that's it. That's it.
That is such a great story, Graham. That's amazing. And Rod's great. Rod's terrific.
Yeah, Rod's just the real look. Forget the politics, forget Great Australia Party, all that stuff. I'm being apolitical as much as I can be, but he's like this. He's the real deal kind of bloke. We just need real deal people. We need real dealers like you guys. You guys are the real deal, and that's what I love about this tribe.
Cheers, Graham.
And there's a kangaroo sitting on my couch. He's about to heave up, I think. They regurgitate. It's quite funny. Anyway, it's an Aussie kind of Christmas.
Kangaroos regurgitate.
They abandoned the border.
Sorry, before the border. Kangaroos regurgitate. I've never didn't know that kangaroos regurgitate.
Yeah, well, we've raised a kangaroo and we've let him go free, but he keeps wandering back, and he's come into the lounge room and he's had a feed, and they regurgitate and reinstitute or whatever they do. They re-eat their stuff, and I'm sitting here talking to you.
You've just ruined Skippy for me. All those years, I never saw Skippy vomit on Sunday.
No, he doesn't bring it out. He gets it up into his throat and then he takes it back down again, like a cow chewing the cud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Damo.
Sorry, Damo.
No, I was just saying, if they abandoned the border crossing for your relatives, there's a good chance a few other people would have slipped through as well. I mean, how long were they away from their post for?
I don't know. I mean, let's not brag about it too much, I guess, because it might still be open. But
there might be people in WA jumping in their caravans now and
it's a pretty big border. It's a pretty damn big border.
Yeah, and the funny part is that sort of nobody wants to be confronted by Rod Culleton because he's like a bulldog. He just never lets go. He's got the Constitution firmly in his brain, and he bamboozles them all. And he's it's funny to watch him, but the cops always end up on the verge of either arresting him and dragging him off, or scratching their head and saying, "You know what, mate, this is way beyond my pay grade."
Same to this guy.
No, how's he going up in?
Same with Damo.
No, but how's Rod going up in Western Australia? Because he's got, is it at Carnarvon? He's found a court to. What do you know what's going on there?
Broome. He went to Broome.
Broome, was it?
He's got so much stuff going on. He's got constitutional law experts looking into this. He's dead. We shouldn't have state boundaries. We shouldn't have mandates, all that sort of stuff. And the Constitution protects us from all that. And that's what it's about.
Does. So, apparently.
It does. You wouldn't know it, would you?
No, you wouldn't know it. Not at all. No.
Rod, I've heard it said about Rod Culleton, and talking to him is like trying to herd cats. But there's not a malicious bone in the guy's body. He just loves his country. And anyway, this might end up sounding political. I'm talking about a man. And it's been really funny, enlightening, and a real experience to sort of chat with him from time to time and hear what he's got to say. And because my belief is with all this stuff goes away if we get our government back and we get our constitution back where it should have been. You know, they did change it to a corporation in 1973, and we've gone down the tubes ever since then. And that's why I'm really on board with getting people to stand in front of the government mansions in all the states and Yarralumla in silent protest. No speakers, no loud hailers, no placards, nothing for the mainstream media to say, oh, look at all these right-wing Nazis or whatever. Just silent protest and let the numbers build, because that's what makes the politicians anxious. And the rallies, I think, are amazing for building the tribe. They really build the tribe, and that's been a wonderful part of the process. But the real action, I believe, from here on in, it's got to be at the gates of the government houses. But anyway, let's not get.
How do you reckon it'll look? How do you reckon it'll look going into the new year? Because it'll be interesting, won't it? Because there's sort of like a stop now. There's a separation between now and what happens in the new year. And I know, like Perete's relaxing a lot of the rules around jabbed versus unjabbed and what you're allowed to do. So, what do you think? There will be massive numbers return onto the street again in the new year?
Well, you know what? If there isn't, then what are we doing? Why did we start this? I mean, if we're just going along for a music festival, if we're just going along to be weekend warriors, then they'll get used to that. We've got to look at the fact that the police have been lenient, and that's great. But the police also corral us into certain areas. The numbers are never being properly reported. If 3.5% of the population protest in peace, in history throughout Australia since 1900, governments have fallen. Well, we've had 3.5% in Australia is 906,000. We're getting upwards to 1.5 million every weekend at the rallies. But I think while they've been good, they have been amazing for building the tribe, and they're really letting more and more people become aware and awake, because it's not being published by the mainstream media. Average Joe Blow in his house isn't seeing it. If they were seeing the real numbers and the actual imagery of the everyday mums and dads, this would have been over. So
can I just read you out something? Sorry, I read you out. I got sent this last night. Now, Graham, you probably get sent these. I get loads of them, so you would get, you just get trillions of them. This is from Beck in Tasmania. Hi, I'm in Hobart, but do you or your followers have any advice or ideas how to survive financially or keep a roof over your head after losing employment due to these evil mandates? They've hit Tassie hard and fast. I'm about to lose my job if I don't comply, and nearly all jobs are requiring you to be jabbed. I'm all but completely and absolutely broken in every way because of all the evil going on around us. The divide, the segregation, now very soon financially too. Any advice from your crew would be amazing. And so what I did is I said, well, look, I can't help you personally, but I'm going to post it on our community. And what we have is a community, Graham. It's not a fan base. It's this community. And the comments have gone crazy. And if you get there, they're beautiful. That's all we can really do. And it's sharing the pain and sharing advice and stuff like this. But we don't even hear about Tassie. We hear about Queensland. We hear about Northern Territory going crazy. But even Tassie is suffering down there. You know what I mean? And so it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary time.
You know, I know that Hoodie's helpers have got a heap of financial planners and people who used to work for the Commonwealth Bank and everything. Robin was just having a beer on her own, by the way, and pour one for the rest of us, Robin. We'll have one with you. There are a lot of people giving free advice through Hoodie's helpers, and it's just a matter of connecting, getting onto the Facebook pages, getting onto the Telegram pages, putting your story out there like your people have done with you guys. There is always someone out there with some advice and ready to help. And I think that's what's really shining at the moment. You know, the thing is, there are so many people confronted with different levels of stress and pain.
Yeah.
And it's really easy. I get a bit cranky with some people who, you know, when I share a story of someone who, like a guy who came to me at the border rally up at the Tweed one day and cried in my shoulder so much that my shirt was dripping wet. And he composed himself and he said, Hoodie, I feel ashamed to even talk to you because I caved in yesterday and had the jab. And I said, what got you to that stage? And he said, it's me and my wife and our teenage kids, and I did it so they wouldn't have to do it, so I could keep bread on the table. I said to him, buddy, would you take a bullet for your family? He said, absolutely. I said, well, you just did, and you're an absolute hero. God bless you. You are an absolute hero. So I shared that story with a few people, and some hardliners said, well, where's his integrity? And I just dismissed that rubbish. We
No,
can't.
I agree with that.
It's easy for us to stand on a soapbox and talk about people's integrity, but we've got to stand in their shoes. And this is not about, for me, this is not about a medical procedure. This is about control. This is about losing our freedom. This is about losing our nation. And more people who have been through the procedure are waking up to the fact that this is not about it. And the cracks I'm seeing starting to appear. Anastasia Palaszczuk in Queensland and her chief medical officer are saying, maybe we've just got to start living with this thing and build our immune system up. For goodness sake, you could have said that 18 months ago and saved all this. It would have all been over by now. Yeah. And if you're worried about, Anastasia, if you're worried about the hospital system not coping with the pandemic when it really hits and becomes endemic instead of pandemic, then reinstate the 4,500 nurses who are no longer working in your hospitals. Put them back in there. Get them back in there. They're ready. I hear at the Austin Hospital, someone told me today they're reinstating cardiac nurses who haven't been jabbed. I'm hearing that, and I'm talking to a lot of nurses at the moment, and a few mates of mine and I are getting ready to do a documentary special with a whole bunch of nurses talking about what's going on, and there's doctors ready to come on board. And we're going to take this to AHPRA, the medical mafia. We're going to stick it to these guys in the new year, because
we actually think they should be the protest should be outside there, because they've betrayed they're forcing our doctors to betray their own Hippocratic oath. I mean,
there's a go.
Where do they get off?
There's a go. Let's do that. Let's go to AHPRA, because I'll tell you what, AHPRA's the reason why I'm in this space at the moment.
That's right.
AHPRA made it very clear that doctors couldn't tell me the information I needed to make an informed consent. So they're the geese, they're the idiots that have created this environment where so many people are holding back and not trusting.
That's right. And and they've literally silenced doctors. So doctors now, if they want to actually say what they think to you as a patient, they risk losing their jobs. And to lose a doctor is a tragedy for our country, especially a doctor who's got the integrity to live up to the Hippocratic oath. So I think basically, at the moment, AHPRA seems to be just product enforcement. That's all there is. Just they're selling the product.
I spoke to some deregistered psychologists this morning in that Zoom, and they were telling me that that they had been censured, and they carry a badge of honour from AHPRA, that they've been told that they were being deregistered for asking their clients to do some research and be properly informed.
Yeah.
So the psychologists are saying that's a badge of honour for them.
It costs a lot too for the culture to train a doctor. It actually costs a lot of money to train a doctor. So it's such a waste to not then have them practicing. But there is a reality to what the person, like what Michael's talking about, the person in Tasmania, and there's these processes that we can go through to take people to court, but they're using the process to starve us out, because how long does that take? How long does it take to get a finding against AHPRA? How many courts are they going to go through before you can actually get that finding against them? If you can even find a judge that will find against them. And by that stage, what are we meant to do? Live in penury? Are we supposed to live on the streets and take our children and family on the streets, sell everything we've got and live in cars? Because that's what's happening to people. And as this goes on longer and longer and longer, they're starving us out, starving us into submission.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And the only way out of this, and I'm urging every medical professional who knows in their heart that this is wrong, and I know there are thousands of you. I know I'm talking to a lot of you, and you're just holding back. You're reluctant. All it takes for evil to thrive is for men and women of goodwill to do nothing.
Exactly.
This will really go badly if you don't speak up. We need you to speak up. You're telling me privately. You're telling others privately. It's about time to go public. And, the more we do that, the better it will be. I've done a lot of work. Sorry, mate?
The same with the priests, because the priests are telling me they want to speak up, but if they do, they could be disrobed. But I'm thinking, well, tough. Now's the time to stand up. Yeah,
because priests need to realise. Sorry, Michael. priests need to realise that one day they're going to have to stand before God and make account for what they're doing. So in the book of Galatians, chapter 1, verse 10, it says, I speak to please God, not man, because if I speak to please man, how can I please God? And I say that to all these professionals out there that are holding back, and there's absolutely thousands of them. And I'm doing a lot of work with a great team at Parents with Questions. That website is amazing. Everybody should log into that. There's some great resources there to help you get ready for the school year with your kids, with documentation from lawyers that you make sure that the jab is not discussed in front of your children, and not only that, that they're not jabbed. There's some great legal protections there. But I did a bit of a study about, can we trust the government with our kids? Now, Michelle and I have been in the childhood sexual abuse recovery process for 15 years. We've been helping people restore their brokenness from being abused as children. And we've been in that space for a long time. Michelle and I went to the Royal Commission in Brisbane when it was on. I'm good mates with one of the Royal Commissioners, and he and I have had some lengthy conversations. And I had a look at the Wood Royal Commission. I've heard everybody talk about this Wood Royal Commission. And when you look at all this stuff and you ask the question, how good is government at protecting our children? Well, let me tell you, the government protecting kids who've been sexually abused has been complicit in the abuse. They have enabled the abuse. And if you enable abuse by doing nothing about it, you are complicit in that abuse. And not only that, we look at DOCS, the Department of Child Safety, and child protection units around the country. Family law has decimated families and destroyed the lives of children. And we've got bureaucrats running around making decisions like this one I have in front of me, an email sent to me from Child Protection in Queensland that was sent to all staff. And it basically said, if there are any kids in childcare, in foster care at the moment, we have the right to get them jabbed. So get them to a medical professional and get that done immediately. And if there are any children who are in temporary foster care who will be going back to their parents, get it done before they go back to their parents. The parents have no say. And the guy who sent me this email resigned over it. And he was double jabbed, and he resigned over it because he said, that's just disgusting. You know, parents have no say over their children. We're looking at, you know, the gender debates going on in schools and things like that, that parents in Victoria can be jailed if they pray for their kids who've got gender dysphoria. Now, you know, we've got to look at this. Do governments protect children? My friends, traditionally they have not. Traditionally, they have been the antichrist of child protection. And we're now trusting them to put a gene experiment into our children. We need to be briefed. We need to get onto these sites like Parents with Questions. We need to make sure we're informed, and we need to stand up, and men need to stand in the strength of their capacity as fathers and be real fathers to their children. Don't leave this to mum. You know, we've got to really get on top of this because they're coming after our kids.
Damien actually calls it all the time. He calls it a war on love, and he's completely correct. And so here we've got Steve Williams is commenting, spent the day alone, the first time in many years. My son's mum won't let me see him because of my jab status. My brother, my only family, banned me from spending the day with him because I'm not jabbed. That's where we are now. This is Christmas, and that's where we are as Australians. And yeah, it's quite an extraordinary time. I agree with everything you're saying.
It's interesting, Graham, though, isn't it? Because you talk about the Royal Commission that was set up for, you know, abuse into the abuse of children, but it was set up specifically to look at religious institutions abusing children, wasn't it? Particularly, I think it was trying to attack the Catholic Church. But Gillard left any corruption on that level from the government wasn't considered, wasn't looked into.
No, actually, Damien, they did have a broad reference. They looked at Boy Scouts and schools and things like that. There were a whole bunch of things there.
But that's not government institutions. That stops short of government institutions, doesn't it? Yeah, I guess. But the one thing that disturbed me was that the Royal Commission was asked to increase its terms of reference to include the legal fraternity after what was read in the Wood Royal Commission, which pointed out that there were judges and legal practitioners who were going to boy brothels and things like that. This was what I read in the Sydney Morning Herald article of, I think, 2015. And when it was put to Brandis, who was the Attorney General at the time, that the terms of reference should be increased to include the judiciary, his response was,
we don't want to go there, because if the truth comes out about the judiciary, then the people of Australia will lose confidence in its judiciary.
Yeah, I heard you say
Now,
that.
I'm afraid after what's been going on in the courts the last couple of years, you look what's been happening with John Latta and people like that. I've completely lost faith in the judiciary. I've lost faith in the government bureaucracy. I've lost faith in governments. There's only one faith that's founded in anything that's reasonable for me, and that's in Jesus Christ and the government in heaven. And that's where I hang my hat. I'm sorry, but and looking at some of the comments, some of the people who've had this horrendous Christmas, I'm so glad you're at the end of the day with us. Because
Here's another one, Graham. Deborah, my heart goes out to you. Family totally ignored us this year. Heartbreaking time. So, Deborah, this is why we did the show tonight. So, I'm sorry for that. That must be just absolutely heartbreaking. And
but hey, Deborah, you're in this amazing new family now, honey, and you are loved and you are cherished. And I said in the Zoom earlier today, wouldn't it be great if we got all this tribe into one country? Wouldn't it be great if we could get all these people onto an island somewhere and just start a whole new country? I mean, it would rock the socks off the planet.
I'm saying Kangaroo Island. Do you reckon Kangaroo Island would be big enough, Graham?
No.
Well, whatever island we'd reach, we'd need a powerful beacon of love to reach there. And speaking of beacons of love, here's Topher.
Thank you, Michael. Gentlemen.
Topher, the big Topher.
Topher, Merry Christmas.
So good to see you. And
How are you, Topher? Merry Christmas to you, mate.
Thank you. And to you guys as well. And my wife and I were actually debating whether or not we should do a slow chat tonight, because we're very cognizant of exactly what you've been talking about, that this, Christmas can be a tough time of year in a good year for some people, right? Exactly. And this is not a good year. And it's been tougher than usual for more than usual. And we were discussing, do we do it? Do we not? And the idea was that perhaps she and I would sit down and have a chat and debrief and talk to people. And she was just too tired, too exhausted. And so we said, okay, we're not going to do that. And then I got your invitation, Michael, and I thought, perfect. Absolutely perfect. You guys are already all over it. You're already meeting that need. And I'm more than happy to jump in and spend a bit of time with you guys. Have you ever heard, Graham, of the Free State Project in the US?
No.
Interesting little project. So this idea of having your own country or picking an island and we all move there, they've actually been trying to organize that in the US. And the state that they picked is the state of New Hampshire. And what they're doing is they're basically getting people to commit to move to New Hampshire if they exceed a certain number of people. And I don't remember what that number is. But the idea is if a certain number of freedom-loving people and freedom-voting people all move to New Hampshire in one big hit, from then on, they'll be able to win all the elections. So once they reach that threshold of people committing to it, then they all have to do it at the same time. And from there, they kind of own the state. They just go in, they vote for the people that are actually going to stand up for what they believe in. Now, I don't believe they've ever reached the point of actually triggering, but they've had tens of thousands of people sign up and actually say, yes, I would come and be a part of this. Now, I don't know exactly where it's at. I think it may have stalled, may have lost its momentum, and may be one of those things that they tried to do and didn't quite work out. But I think the concept has merit. And in Australia,
principality? Isn't there a principality? Is that like what's called a principality? Isn't there a principality in WA? Some sort of
the Hutt River Province, which is now dissolved. Yeah. They've now So the gentleman who started that passed away a number of years ago, and his son, I think, tried to keep it going, but it was just too complicated, too hard. The Australian tax office were just making life miserable for them. And I just don't think they had enough to keep themselves going. But I think that the key to any successful project like that is community. One person going out there and trying to create their own little island, their own little principality is always going to be a really rough road. But a couple of thousand people or a few tens of thousands of people doing that, that's something that's got some legs.
Would they let us say? I wonder if they let us do it.
Before we go on, guys, I just want to read out some of the comments because this show tonight is about the people coming in. So Deborah White here, the message out to Queenslanders. First thing this morning wasn't Happy Christmas, but unvaxxed shouldn't associate with the vaxxed. So that's the message out to Queenslanders today. We were on our way to our family. I thought, for goodness sake, give us Christmas Day with peace. It's extraordinary. Damo, you're right. It's a war on love. They actually have the audacity to say that today. Extraordinary.
Well, love makes us powerful against the state. love actually
Yeah.
makes us powerful against the state. So the state needs
Yeah.
to destroy
And
it. Yeah.
talking of love, these people behind me, they all met in COVID. They're from the Parliament steps, and they're part of the Free Hug Army. And we came around and we did a photo shoot yesterday for fun. We spent the whole day together. It was terrific. But here they are. All of them have lost their jobs. All of them are wondering what to do with the future, and yet they still come and are committed to the fight. It's there's hope within their number, and so yeah. So this is what gives me hope is the people coming together to fight still.
Well, this is what's been really significant for me since Dan Andrews got his bill passed down here in Victoria. If we were defeated, then everything would have stopped. There'd be no more protests. There'd be no more getting together. The online activity would have stopped. If we'd all given up and gone home, that's what you would see. Instead, you see the opposite. We've got people coming out every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, protesting. There's been, you guys led people down to Government House. We've seen teams go out to everywhere from Bendigo, Ballarat, Shepparton, Albury, a bunch of other places that I forget. And it's amazing. Oh yeah. You guys organised in Shepparton. I came along, and this is the amazing thing. People are not behaving like we're defeated. People are very much behaving like we are still in this fight, and we're going to keep on going. And this is, I'm finding, tremendously inspiring for me, and actually features very heavily in the end of the documentary Battleground Melbourne. This is actually the I'm kind of spoiling the finish, if you will, but we lost the war over that piece of legislation, but the spirit of the people is actually rising.
It was more of a battle. We lost a battle.
We lost the battle, excuse me, yes.
Battle, but the war has just begun, really.
Yeah, and the spirit of people rising in all around Australia, but I live in Melbourne, so I see it here in Victoria. Is just phenomenal, and is so incredibly thrilling to see it happening. And this is a result of every single one of us here, plus so many others that aren't here with us tonight, and so many people at home watching who are all doing what they can do in their own sphere of influence within their own world to build community, to repair damage, to actually bring people together when the government is trying to tear us apart so much.
Yeah. There's
on Wednesday we went down to Marvel Stadium and Channel 7, and it wasn't great numbers, but some of the people that came told me, that was their first one. So you just never know when someone's going to make that choice to go, you know what, I'm not sitting to watch this anymore, or see thousands of people on the street. And there would have only been a few hundred of us. We were almost outnumbered by the police, but even still. But some of the people I talked to said, this is my first one,
Yeah. The police, every TOFA, every time we go there, Graham, have you fallen asleep? Every time we go there.
He's looking at his text messages.
These police film us, right? And they just film us constantly. And they're the same. This time when we turned up, they actually said to Damien, "You're late."
Yeah, I got there a bit late, but they didn't call me Damien. They called me Damo. They said, "Damo, what's going on? You're late." He said nothing to me the whole time. That's the first thing he's ever said to me. I almost liked him.
The officers that arrested me have watched hour upon hour upon hour of my content. I got a text message from one of them the other day, and we ended up having a quick phone call. And he said to me, "Mate, I'm loving your slow chats. I'm really enjoying your slow chats." I'm like, these guys are
some cigars.
These guys are tasked with having to sit there and watch our stuff, and a lot of them.
So if I'm coughing because of your cigar smoke,
you're welcome.
I'll send you around them, mate. Graham.
I'll send you the bill.
I just wanted to do one of the specials from the year was when we went to Shepparton. I don't know if Topher saw this, but we had someone who wanted to give Daniel Andrews, because I was driving the Reignite Democracy's Kill the Bill truck. And so someone passed us in a van, and he had a few words of advice for Dan Andrews. And this has gone viral, and I just thought you might like it. You might not have seen it, Graham. It might give you a chuckle.
Sack Dan Andrews! Sack Dan Andrews! Fuck Dan Andrews! Fuck Dan Andrews! Hey, fucking dog dangle, motherfucker! Motherfucker! That fucking dog! The inside of this dog! Fuck ya!
Now, he's subtle in his critique.
He is.
I like him because he gets to the point.
There's a nuance.
Now,
There's a nuance
who he
there
is.
that you might
if you're
miss.
out there, we'd love to have you on the show.
Just, I'd love to know whether he's going to vote
for
for
5
Dan Andrews
minutes.
at the election. It's just unclear, what he's going to, how he's going to vote.
Who was he supporting?
It's true.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, guys, I've just got a message from somebody very, very special in Hoodie's Helpers. It's a lady called Diana Maitland. Oh, sorry, Diana, I'm not meant to talk about you. Yes, I am. You're an angel. She says she's watching live. She said Hoodie's Helpers have suicide crisis counsellors on standby all weekend. People just need to message the main Facebook page with their number and they will get a call back. We are also scouring social media for cries for help. And this has been going on 24/7 with hundreds of thousands of people involved in Hoodie's Helpers. Thank you, Diana, for that message. So if you're on the edge or you just want to chat to somebody professional, go to the main Facebook page, Hoodie's Helpers. There's somebody there who's absolutely trained to look after you. And Diana and all the angels, I call them Hoodie's Angels who run Hoodie's Helpers. You're just amazing, and God bless you, and thanks for the wonderful work that you've been doing for us.
Look at this here. This is from Cairns. I'm going back to work unvaccinated as a nurse in aged care next week. That's interesting. You know, that's I'm hearing that across the board now. Aged care is always short-staffed, and literally, if they don't have the people, they cannot do the work.
Yeah.
So they have to compromise. So the people holding the line could actually win when it's seen that it's absolutely desperate to get these people back and do the work. So I've been feeling that other people are going back. So cardiac nurses are going back unvaccinated. So
I wonder why cardiac nurses. Why cardiac nurses?
Oh, I wonder.
Now the other thing that's
cardiac nurses.
The other thing that's
but isn't it illegal for them to work? It's either illegal or not for them to work, isn't it? Or how can they come back?
We need to.
I don't know.
We need to go to APRA and ask that question. The airline industry has been in chaos for the last few days. Flights have been cancelled everywhere because they don't have enough staff. If all the staff are double vaccinated, well, that's what it is. A lot of people going sick, and they're saying that the restrictions mean that we can't get staff to operate the aircraft and all that sort of stuff. Well, if the only staff they've got left are double vaccinated, and that's true, then why are we having this problem? We're going back to the new normal. If we get double jabbed, for goodness sake, people wake up. Anyway,
here we have our first troll. Heather Graham, how do you recommend people build up their immune systems, Dr. Hood? God, you talk a load of ignorant, uninformed, opinionated twaddle. Is this one of your
thank you, Heather.
Look, points for
you don't have to build it up. I had COVID without anything, and my immune system, which I already had, and the amount of shit I've put in my body over the years, I'm amazed my immune system's still working, and it still conquered COVID. And basically, all these people behind me, literally about 40, 50 people I know, they've all had COVID, they've all got over it. So you just have to trust in your own immune system. You don't need chemicals for everything, Heather. So why don't you crawl back in your cave and piss off?
Can I make a comment on that before we move on, Michael? My mother's in her 70s, and she contracted what she suspected was probably the dreaded Rona, but she wasn't about to go running down and getting tested for it. She'd had symptoms for about 10 days and really was not getting any better. She wasn't crippled, but she was bedridden pretty much, and it wasn't great. And then she remembered, she'd forgotten, believe it or not, that some time ago she signed up to a clinical trial whereby, as a result of being in this clinical trial, if she ever got cold and flu symptoms, she could go to them. They would test her for the Rona and would actually give her some of these medications, which if I mention their name, I'm going to get us all booted offline, right? And because it was an actual formal medical trial that was organized in early 2020 or late 2020, I believe it was all above board. And so she went and she did that and she got the medications, and less than 48 hours later, she was back on her feet and feeling pretty good. Now she's got some ongoing symptoms, some ongoing fatigue, and a few that hasn't just been a miracle, you know, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory kind of dancing around at the end of the bed scenario. But she went from 11 days progressively getting worse, and within 2 days, she was feeling great. Now, I know an increasing number of people that have had the Rona. I know an increasing number of people that have used these medications that they've had to get their hands on themselves because they can't get it through official channels. And I would add to what you said to that troll earlier that, get your head out from under a rock and start talking to people. And actually, you know, yes, they're only anecdotes, but if you add up enough anecdotes, that's what research is made out of. I mean, a clinical trial is basically a collection of controlled anecdotes. That's what it is, right? You get enough anecdotes together, you start to get data. And there's
Yeah.
plenty of them out there if you're willing to look.
Yeah.
I want Heather to know that I love her. I want Heather to know. I do love her because look,
I'm
Jesus,
not
her
laughing.
response-
I'm laughing because it's a thing. But sorry, go ahead.
yeah, her response to what I'm saying is out of fear, and
Yeah, it is, yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
not my place to condemn her, but I wanted to know that I'm not a doctor, and I try every which way I can to let people know I'm not giving medical advice. I'm in this to fight for the freedoms that we're losing. But the information I talk about medically is what I'm getting from doctors and nurses who are telling me what's going on at the coalface. So Heather,
Right.
lots of love, honey. Merry Christmas, and I'm really glad you're watching it because we want you to have some good cheer as well. And
That's right.
you know, it's great. It's fine. And you know, the old bomber pilots in World War II always knew they were over the target when the flak came up. So thanks, Heather, and God bless you, darling. I
Exactly
really mean
right.
that. I'm not
Exactly
being-
right.
Barbara Ludlow is waiting to send you a donation. Could you please respond to my PM? But she wants to do the hoodies helper, so maybe you want to look up that. Now, Topher, there's something for us to bring up. We've just started selling T-shirts because we're not that organized, but we've started selling them. And people are coming up going, oh, you guys are just doing this for the money. and I was thinking, well, from my perspective, I was thinking, well, Big Pharma is making, quadruple billions. Dan Andrews and all the premiers are getting $8,000 a week. And here we are basically going out trying to just basically add another narrative and go, listen, we're not sure about this. And for some reason, we have to do it for free.
So a lot of people.
So I was just going to say, just to finish, revolutions, and this could be a long revolution, and this is what's happened, cost money. So if you do want to keep us on the air, unfortunately, very few people are going to sponsor us. It has to come from donations, has to come from merchandise, and that's what it is. And I'm betting you do an awful lot of work, because I know we do with this just a little show and the process we do. So you too, and Graham, you quit your job, you must be working all the time. But Topher, what's your take on it for those people that are thinking that we're just
Sure. I've been a political commentator for 12 years. A lot of people think I was one of these ones that popped up when the Rona came along. I actually I've been chipping away at this for 12 years, a solid 11 years before the Rona came along. And my biggest regret in hindsight is that I didn't actually monetize what I was doing and make it financially sustainable. Because yes, I was doing it in my own spare time. I was treating it like a hobby. At various stages over those 12 years, I've had full-time jobs, or I've been freelancing in the film industry, or doing various things to pay the bills. And as a result, I was never really willing or able to invest in what I was doing. And I finally made the decision what happened was COVID came along, and I went, okay, I've got some things to say about this. And I realized, I looked at my platform, and at the time it was a couple of thousand people. And I realized that if I'd only actually swallowed my pride, because it was actually pride that stopped me. But if I'd swallowed my pride and monetized the channel and said, hey guys, this is what I do. If you like it, please support me in these ways. And then I'd reinvested that money back into the platform, I could have had a far bigger impact than what I was able to have early on. So I made the decision some months ago that I was going to get serious about this Topher thing, whatever this is. I'm still not even 100% sure. I've got branding. I've got a bunch of different T-shirts. By the way, good choice with AussieBot Studios, Cafe Locked Out. Brad at AussieBot Studios is an absolute champ and doing all the T-shirts and everything else. Fantastic guys. So if you're shopping for my T-shirts, make sure you look for Cafe Locked Out as well on the same website. They're going to be on the same platform there, and of course vice versa. But supporting everybody that you can is very much appreciated. But understanding there is a difference between someone who changes what they're saying because of the money they're being offered versus somebody who is consistently saying something and then finds a way to make it financially viable. Right? Someone who says, oh, you're going to pay me money. Great. I'll say what you want. They're a shill. That's what a shill is. Someone who's actually out there already going, this is what I believe to be true. This is what needs to be said in this moment in time. Now, how am I going to pay my bills? That person's not a shill. That person is simply trying to make what they do sustainable. And I've been encouraging Rukshan. I would encourage you guys. I would encourage everybody in this space. Find a way to become financially sustainable as soon as possible. Ignore the haters. Sure, apparently I've been playing the long game for 12 years to build up to launching a line of T-shirts. Like, apparently that's been my strategy all along. And now I'm rolling in money because I've got some T-shirts, right? This is, if you listen to some people, that's what they're going to tell you. But I would encourage every single person who is out there actively fighting publicly to be looking for ways to make it financially sustainable and to reinvest in their platform as soon as possible. Don't make the mistake that I made and spend 10 years doing good work and having barely anybody see it.
And
Yeah,
so the
that's
thing
right.
is, Toby, when you say what you think, you preclude yourself from any of the mainstream funding streams
Correct.
straight away, because you have to toe that
So
political
true.
line.
So true.
And that's the difference. So like the ABC can just put on whatever it wants to put on because it gets over $1 billion every year of taxpayers' money. If someone wants TOFA to keep going, they have to buy a T-shirt. So it's a different. It's a
And
different
same with you
proposition
guys.
altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, can I weigh in there? Can I weigh in there?
Steve,
for
go
a
ahead.
minute? Yeah, I've spoken to Brad at AussieBot as well. I had a lot of people prompting me to do that. And one of the main drivers was there are a whole bunch of people wanting to wear Hoodie Helpers or Hoodies Heroes T-shirts.
Yep.
And so I spoke to Brad, and one of the big issues for me was, well, firstly, I was told when I first made that video that by lawyers that if I laid low for 18 months, they could probably get a substantial payout for me from my former employer.
Yeah, right.
And I said, what have I got to do to have that happen? They said, well, you've got to stay low for the next 18 months or 2 years. And the messages I was getting from everybody after I made that video made it clear that I'd become a voice for Middle Australia, one of the voices, like you guys are. And I thought, no, if I do that, I'm going to be neglecting those people. So I said, no. I said to the lawyer, I'm just going to come out and forgo the whistleblower protection and all that, and just let the cards fall where they may. Now, we stepped out in faith because we had $8,000 in our bank account, and that was it. And so talking to Brad, and the other thing that I had was I'm not into, having logos and all that sort of stuff. It just doesn't sit with me. But I decided that my inspiration for doing what I'm doing is my dad, who went to war for 5 years, old Snowy. And his photo, it's a sepia photo of him in his African Australian uniform, in his North Africa campaign uniform with his slouch hat. And I said to Brad, I want him to be the face of Hoodie's Heroes. I want him to be the hoodie. I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about him and the service he gave his country for 5 years so we didn't have to have rallies. So that was a hard thing to overcome as well, because I don't want to be this public figure.
Yeah.
I'm really only here because I care about people. I've had to define my role in the last few days to some people who've been asking me, where are you going to go with this? And as soon as I can get the tinny into the Clarence River and catch a few bream, that's what I want to do. But in the meantime, I've got a job, and that job is to be the voice for those people.
You practice that. Have you got like a whiteboard with what you just said there, and you practice it, or it just rolls off the tongue? Because if you were flying an airplane when you did the pilot thing, that would have been classic. Hearing the stuff you came out like that, you know what I mean?
I made some really
thing
crazy
you just said about the
comments.
tinny and stuff like that. It's amazing.
Yeah. So for me, at the end of the day, I just want to be. If I was in a war, my role would be either a combat medic or a chaplain. That'd be me. I don't want to be a general. I don't want to be a commanding officer. None of that. I don't want to be there to destroy people. I want to be there to restore people. And that's always been on my heart. And Michelle's the same. Our whole purpose the last 15 years has been about restoring broken lives. So that's why I'm there. We are going to need to put bread on our table. There's a great guy called Ben Marshall writing a book for me called Under the Hood, which is a story of my life, because he said you need to have an income. Now, I do, because you know what? There's no way on earth I'm going to get a pension from the government. They're not going to let me into Centrelink unless I'm double jabbed. And
you come down here and live in Mickleham.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
There'll be one closer to home. There will be one closer to home.
Yeah, there will be. But anyway, look, people, let's get over that stuff, because it's look, for me, it's not about ego and it's not about making money, but I've still got to pay the rates every year so they don't kick me off my property.
Well, it's like circumstances compelled you to come forward, isn't it? Like circumstance compels you to come forward.
We might be vocal and out front because we've set these things up. But these people behind us, most of those women sit on the steps of Parliament every single day and sit there all day. They're surviving on fumes. And so I'm getting them in, trying to see if we can get this free hug army and maybe get some T-shirts or something behind it, some sort of structure behind it to see if we can get them some income coming in, because there they are. They're a powerful force, but you have to get real. Revolutions cost money. That's just how it is. and we need one. And I mean, we might not be able to go back to what Australia was, but maybe we don't need to. Because another thing I was thinking today is this is a really interesting point. Is a lot of people have been talking about suicide, but I wrote this play once, and in it, one of the characters says, he talks about his indifference. He's entrapped by his indifference. And what he says is, in some of these Arabic countries that were at war, the young people were killing themselves, like in suicide attacks, to try and take out the enemy. And yet their suicide rate was far lower than ours, but our youth suicide rate was high, and most of our youth were killing themselves for no good reason at all. I actually think there was a lack of purpose, where now I see a lot of young people rising up and they have purpose because they're joining freedom rallies or they're fighting. And I think if they win this fight, they might want a different Australia that's not just materialism and soulless. They actually has something, and they have a valid voice in the culture. And so I think we could, if we win, be on our way to a far greater Australia than we left behind.
Yeah, absolutely. It's anybody who wants to go back to the old normal has got rocks in their head. The old normal was about a selfish bunch of individuals that called themselves Australia. We were all so self-focused, it's not funny. I want to be part of a community where people put their mobile devices down and actually hug each other or ask the question, how are you? And if they hear the answer is I'm fine, then say, fine's a weather forecast. I want to know how you really are. We shouldn't be measured by the number of Facebook friends we've got. Where are they when your house is on fire? You know what I mean? This is not about likes and shares and all that. This is about community. This is about the wet Hessian bag at the back fence when the fire's bearing down on your houses and the neighbour you've never met, never spoken to for 10 years is shoulder to shoulder with you at the front line. That's what the Australian community is about. We've got to go way back to our future. We've got to go back to the 50s and 60s, to that post-war era where we had to pull together to get our country back on its feet. That's what we're confronting. And we're facing a population who's going to be very angry one way or another. And I think they're going to be angry because they realise that they've been conned. I may be wrong.
I saw that today. I talked to someone briefly I haven't talked to literally since this began because they didn't like my stance. And yet they were actually saying now they're pissed off. They're in WA. Now they've got to wear masks again. And they're going, listen, I've done everything the government asked me to do. I took the 2 jabs and now I'm playing golf. And now I've got to go into the golf house. I've got to put on a mask. And then I sit down at the table. I take off the mask to drink a beer. And then if I go to the toilet, I get up, I've got to put it on again. And suddenly he was just the fact that he was talking to me was showing cracks that maybe he's, and I'm hearing this across the board. So I think people are going to go, okay, we took the 2 jabs. That was the deal. 2 jabs, everything goes back. And now they realize it's bullshit. Now you only have to get jabbed every 3 months. And I think that's our chance too of winning, because I think a lot of people are not going to want to do it.
Yeah, can I reinforce that? Because I'm seeing exactly the same thing. I spoke at my first anti-lock, which I think was the first anti-lockdown rally in April 2020, and I was buried under an avalanche of online hate. My live stream from that protest reached more than 150,000 people within a day or so. And my inbox on Facebook was crammed full. I mean, it was amazing. I'd love to see an English teacher really break down some of these messages, because some of them were pure expletives, and yet you could still actually understand what they were saying. You still like, there was actually still a message in it deeper than just the expletives. It was an amazing study in English. And I got a handful of messages of support and an avalanche of abuse. And that has flipped now. And I release videos and I go to protests and things, and not a single person shows up in my inbox on Facebook with a hateful message anymore. All of those people, they're keeping their heads down. I've had multiple people come back to me and have the courage to say, you know what, I unfollowed you when you went and spoke at that protest, or I was one of the people criticizing you. I sent you one of those messages and I'm sorry, I was wrong. I've actually had multiple people have the courage to do that. And what's happening now is I'm seeing more and more people on Facebook who have never dared to be political on Facebook before, whether they've got business on Facebook or, whatever, family, what have you. They've never been political before, and they're now willing to stick their necks out on the pro-freedom side of this issue. And I've known them on Facebook for 10 years or more, most of these people.
I think sometimes, Toby, you can flush people out because you can put up a post like Merry Christmas And those people will go, yeah, good on you, Merry Christmas. They will said nothing to you for 2 years because they don't agree with anything you've said politically. But I think underneath it, they're going, I can agree with this one. And it's my tacit way of saying, keep doing what you're doing anyway, because I can't agree with any of those other things publicly. But maybe I do agree with you. But it's interesting, isn't it? The thought of like speaking out and the danger of, if you want, becoming a thought leader, because you think, well, what if I am wrong? But you got to a point in the COVID narrative, we just thought, I just have to say, I cannot sit with this any longer. But really, I know in the profession I was in, I had sat on my hands for a long time because there was always an excuse. There was always a reason, like Graham said, not to do it now. Don't do it now. Wait now. Just wait. You might get that job. And then you'll preclude yourself from even being able to go for that job. It was always wait, until I was becoming sicker and sicker and sicker as an individual because I was just sitting on all this stuff that seemed reasonable to just be able to talk about. But no, I wasn't allowed to talk about any of it. So I better not talk about any of it. I better not keep the peace, whatever it is, go along to get along. And eventually I just got to a point with this COVID stuff and I thought, I can't tolerate it anymore. So out it came, you know. No, you can't stay silent. And it's because of the courage of other people like yourself, Topher, and others, Michael and Graham, you know, and then you encourage other people.
Morgan.
Other people go, yeah, Monica, of course. Heaps.
There's so many. Yort Knight has asked, sorry to interrupt. I asked why Cafe Locked teamed up with Cummings. It's actually Cumming. I'll make that mistake too. Cummings is her porn name. Who had a chance to get Dan out and didn't. Now, actually, that's not the truth. There's Bernie said something to make it sound like that, but it's not actually the truth. And Catherine is a tough fighter. And last night, she called me up, said she had a load of presents, and I put the call out. She's been handing presents out. No one knows about that. We just did it quietly. She's been handing presents out to needy kids. She turns up at all the rallies and stuff. She's a tough bird, and I adore her. And I adore her as a human being, even other than a politician. So she's.
I'll vouch for Catherine as well. I interviewed her for the documentary. I've spoken to her a couple of times now. Essentially, what happened in that vote was that Adam Somyurek had not showed up in the chamber. And if she had allowed it to go to committee and it had gone to a vote without Adam Somyurek showing up and no one knew where he was or what was going on or when he was going to show up, if she'd taken that risk and it had gone to a vote, the government would have gotten the bill through without any changes at all, because Adam Somyurek wasn't there at the time. So there's a lot of what happens in Parliament is very nuanced and very subtle, and it's very easy for people on the sidelines to take a snapshot and view it a certain way. But I would really encourage you guys, whether it's Catherine Cumming, whether it's David Limbrick, Tim Quilty, or any of these other guys that are in our corner on the inside there, don't jump to conclusions until you've actually heard their response.
That was Bernie's email, though. Bernie's email was a volcano. And that's politics. If he can clap out, he'll do it. And he did it, you know.
And that's the problem. That's why we're in this mess in this country, because people are playing politics and not being citizens.
Yeah. Well, they're both going for the same votes. They're both in the same region for the upper house votes, so they're both going for the same. Yeah. It's the reality of the situation.
Yeah. It's the biggest danger for us in the movement that is growing, and it's growing so beautifully. The biggest danger is looking for points of division where there don't need to be any. We need to be looking for points of unity, and we need to accept the fact that within the movement, there's going to be people that see things very, very differently to how we do, but they're still on our side. They're still in our corner. And we can have the conversations about where we do disagree, and we should have those in good faith and always be searching for the truth and open to the idea that we might be wrong. However, we can't allow that to become the more important conversation and to actually push people away when, in the bigger scheme of things, they are in our corner, despite the differences of opinion. We finding unity. Even the French resistance against the Nazis had issues with division amongst themselves. They didn't trust each other. They wouldn't work with each other. You had the communist faction, you had a very nationalist faction, you had different factions within, and they're fighting the freaking Nazis, for crying out loud. Like, we've got to put that stuff aside.
Well, at rallies too, you'll see a Trump flag next to a South Vietnamese flag next to an Aboriginal flag. I mean, it's a real disparate group of people.
You're not going to, people are always complaining about others. You're not going to work with saints. If you're going to wait until every freedom fighter that turns up is a complete saint, then we're not going to have a revolution. You know, you've got to have all sorts of flawed characters. And speaking of flawed characters, g'day, Richard.
G'day. That was like on cue, wasn't it, ladies and gentlemen?
Good note to bring him in on.
Oh, yes. Flawed characters. Yep.
Richard is
head troublemaker is
someone
here.
They locked out from our goat show. And there's another lady, a nurse, that might come on briefly. She wants to say something to Graham about what he's been talking about. But Richard, welcome to the show. Topher, Richard, do you know Richard?
I don't believe I do.
Good evening, Topher. Good evening, Hoodie. I'm familiar with your work. I don't know if you're familiar with mine, but that's probably a good thing.
G'day, Richard. Good to see you.
I'm happy to meet you in any case.
Because you wouldn't come on otherwise.
I'd wrap Richard up as a highly entertaining, utterly vain,
Utterly vain.
I like him already.
He turned up at the rallies. His first rally that he turned up is our rallies. He'd never been to a rally before.
No, in my life for anything.
In a uniform that looked like he'd got it from a Nazi party. He didn't. It just happens to be what he was wearing.
Hang on a minute.
Ballarat, they said the Nazis were coming.
That jacket is the jacket he's got on now.
It's
the same
jacket,
that Hermann Goering wore in the trials. Yeah.
Well,
Nuremberg.
it's also the same jacket that Kim Jong Un wears and Dr. Evil. So
there
it's
you
actually
go.
called
I rest my
it's called a
case.
Mandarin collar. It's called a Mandarin collar.
It's
actually
full of Kim Jong Un's.
Well, I'm not a fan of Kim Jong Un. Let's say that, but I'm not a fan of Hermann Goering either. So I just like to confuse people. I think I like to kind of wear the an outfit of the people, the globalists. You know, Dr. Evil is a good kind of I guess metaphor for the kind of people we're dealing with that we call the globalists, kind of Soros and Schwab and these kind of people. They would definitely wear something like this. And, you know, I expect my invitation to Davos any minute.
Yeah. Do you remember the old Ever Ready battery ad, guys? Do you remember? Sorry.
Can I just ask you a question? When you talk, one of the most, I think one of the most remarkable things about your initial video, where you basically burst onto the public scene, was how terribly honest you were in it. You know what I mean? I mean, you literally threw yourself on the sword and said, "Here I am, bad points, good points, all up. Here I am, and this is what I think." But since then, you've gone on this extraordinary adventure. How are you sustaining the energy? Are you getting days of fatigue or this, or are you always...
Who are you talking to here?
Hoodie.
Hoodie.
How are you sustaining your energy in the fight? Because so many people now are basically turning to you. You know what I mean? So how are you maintaining your energy and stuff like that?
It's the people who are turning to me that are maintaining the energy. Because when they turn to me, they give me an opportunity to turn to them. Because I'm just as busted and just as anxious and just as afraid as they are. And when they turn to me, we get a chance to chat sometimes. I can't chat to everybody. I can't even answer all the emails. I've got a beautiful wife who's a psychologist who sustains me in everything I do. I've got a happy marriage. That's really good. Thankfully, I don't have any debt. That's really good. I don't have much money either, but that doesn't matter. What sustains me is my faith. You know, I did a Zoom interview with somebody the other day and said, "Graham, please, you must rest. You must take a week off." And I said, "I'll do that when the war's over." You know, when the bombs were raining down on London in the 40s, they didn't have a chance to, let's just stop the bombing for a week. We're going to have a rest. We can't afford to rest. We've got to keep going. And I might breathe my last breath in this fight, but at least I've lived. And so for me, I don't know how it happens every day. I bathe myself in prayer. There are thousands of people praying for me. As I said, I have a chaplaincy kind of leaning in what I do. And I have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I'm not into religion. I think religion stinks. But I'm into relationship. And I think that's what God's into, is relationship. And when you have a relationship with someone who you believe in your heart created the universe, all the power is available to you when you need it. So
you talked about the blitz there, Chris. So you talked about the blitz, and so they were on defensive footing during that. It feels like we're on a defensive footing all the time, though. Whereas at least they created a beachhead. Somewhere along the line, the Allies created a beachhead, so the Nazi Germany had something else to think about at that particular point in time. How can we
enjoy January 13th? Because
what's happening on January 13th? I think we've. Go ahead.
January 13th is when Battleground Melbourne comes out. And I think at least in the Victorian front in this war, that is going to, it's not going to change everything all by itself. I'm not going to claim that, but I think it is going to put Daniel Andrews heavily on the back foot. He already is in some ways.
Yes.
But I think from middle of January onwards, Daniel Andrews is going to be the one who's heavily on the defensive here in Victoria.
Look, I
he's getting
think that,
very
I
close.
mean, due to the calamities of the 20th century, that, after World War II, to some extent, I think Western civilization enjoyed a period of prosperity, and I guess the world enjoyed a period of prosperity. But I think a lot of us fell asleep at the wheel politically, and that we couldn't see that there was this kind of very evil group of people who were forming, I guess, what you call the top of the pyramid, and that they had dastardly plans for us that we're now seeing playing out. That's my opinion of what's going on. Obviously, what's going on, I believe, dates back. We've been in a kind of global world. There's an interesting new book out called The Global Age, which apparently ended in 2017 with the election of Donald Trump, because that shows there is a resistance to the globalist worldview, and that we're seeing a kind of return to tradition, a return to an interest in nation, a return to faith. Hoodie was talking about faith. I'm a huge fan of his work. I think it's very brave what Hoodie's been doing, and I'm familiar with Topher's work as well. I think it's fantastic. So, it's I think we're in a very interesting age, and it's a kind of, an old world is dying and a new age is being born. And I think that's why we're seeing basically a war.
Yeah, we are at war. I totally agree. Topher, can I ask you the same question I had, Hoodie? How do you keep you sustain your energy? Because they're not stopping. I mean, look, it's Christmas Day, and here we are on here. I invited you, and you're like, yeah, I'm there. I talked to Graham, he's like, yeah, I'm there. Even Damien has been out with his family, and Damien and I have been basically at most of the rallies and stuff. Even Damien's going, yeah, I'll come in. And then, of course, Richard here as well. So, this is a perfect example of what we're talking about. So how do you sustain your energy?
Look, I can relate very deeply to everything that Graham said. I am weeks behind in my emails and my Facebook messages to my page. So if you've been sending me messages, I apologize. It's not personal. I'm not ignoring you. And that's because I've been caught up with the documentary and everything else. And it's just something has to give. I'm a dad. I'm a husband, trying to stay sane through all of it. Let me add, though, another angle to what Graham was talking about. In the White House during the Second World War, they had a party, a cocktail party every single Friday night. And it sort of seems out of keeping. Their GIs are on the front lines fighting, etc. And here the White House would have this cocktail party. And there was one rule for 2 hours during that cocktail party. You could not talk about the war. That was it. And they created for themselves this little safe space for 2 hours every Friday where they could go in and just be human beings and talk to each other and have fun and have a drink and have a laugh and sing some songs and play some music. For me personally, on 2 occasions, I've stepped back from the front lines myself. Once in late 2020 through to early 2021, and once again just for a few weeks around the intensity of the arrest and everything else. I was working on the documentary, but I backed off on everything else that I was doing. I've learned my own limits in terms of my mental health. Part of the reason why I'm not diving into my messages and my emails right now is because I don't have the emotional reserve, the emotional capacity. I mean, I'm sure all of you guys see the same things, the stories. People are reaching out and pouring their heart out. And sometimes I have the emotional reserve to be able to sit there and to read that and to respond and to engage with these people. And sometimes I just don't. And out of respect and love to my family, and out of knowing that this is a long war and I have to be, I need to stay in this war until it's done. That means I can't necessarily be the tip of the spear all of the time, every single time. So what I would say to people is, if you are fatigued, if you are drained, if your reserves are running low, please look after yourself. To use an aviation analogy, put your own face mask on first, right? Make sure that you have your long-term sustainable plan and you're going at a tempo that you can maintain over the long term, because this is going to go on for quite some time. It doesn't mean it's going to be this bad all that time, but it is going to go on for quite some time. And so sustainability is the key.
Just for that last statement is really important, because at the moment there's a lot of people, I think, hoping that there's going to be a quick, easy fix. There's going to be no quick, easy fix as far as I'm concerned.
And if we pull back too,
campaign.
If we pull back too, the problem we're facing is a historical one. We're seeing a kind of a world order that existed probably since around 1950 post-war, up till probably the election of Donald Trump. That it's a kind of we're in a kind of historical era, that's dying and something else is being born. And in these times, there's always a lot of struggle and a lot of chaos even, and so it's not necessarily something that we should be afraid of, or it's just what happens. But I do think that we have traditionally looked, I guess, for the enemies of freedom to the extreme right, say with something like Nazism, or the extreme left with something like communism, Stalin, Mao, things like this. Obviously, there still is a problem with Maoism, even though it's kind of transformed itself in China with a kind of mix of Maoism and capitalism. But again, I think capitalism has. I am actually a fan of capitalism. I'm a fan of libertarianism. But to me, it seems there has been a problem at the top of the pyramid of capitalism that has kind of unified itself amongst a very small group of people, maybe only 1,000 people, who have tremendous power, tremendous influence, tremendous wealth, and that essentially it seems to me that they've decided to enslave humanity, and possibly, if the worst scenario comes about, get involved in some kind of depopulation.
Well, it's crony capitalism, isn't it? It's crony capitalism. There's no market anymore. It dominates the market. So it's
a mix of fascism and capitalism. And, one can actually turn to some left-wing thinkers to actually understand that. I mean, Trotsky, who I'm not a fan of at all, who I hate, but he did say that there was a kind of interesting mix between capitalism and fascism, and that fascism is late-stage capitalism. And that, at the moment, we're in a kind of Weimar Germany that's everywhere. This kind of perverted capitalist orgy.
Richard, I know we do a lot of this on the Goat Show, but today, I want to concentrate more on the human stories than all that stuff which you love, but basically bounces.
No trouble.
On a human story, and I spent time. I spent time with the kids today.
My 10-year-old granddaughter told me today on the phone that she has to have the jab in 2 months. I'm sick to my stomach. They're willing to abuse children like this. I went to Christmas service and shared lunch with a non-VATS family. So obviously she's not allowed to her family. But I'm heartbroken for my thing. So just this particular show tonight, if today you've had a tough day and you want to get that, just a brief of it in the comments, feel free and stuff like this. So this is the thing of trying to uplift people today, just give them some laughter and just this, only because
God bless you,
in my
it's Christmas.
55 years on the planet, I'd say this Christmas day is probably the single toughest Christmas day of all. You know what I mean? Just for a lot of families out there. So that's more what I want to concentrate on today. If that,
I understand.
Well, how they're getting away with it. It's extraordinary how they're getting away with it. I took the kids today. We went for a drive to get out of the house, break it up a little bit. And we went to Gisborne, and there's some outdoor gym equipment been installed by the government, and there's a QR code next to it. You got to log on to use this outdoor gym equipment. I mean, you don't. I don't imagine many people are, but it's the level of insanity was just like.
Yeah, look, the Soviet Union didn't try this, mate. The Soviet Union, this is beyond the level of control the Soviet Union was involved in. And what the hell are we doing implementing this kind of thing in the supposedly free West that many people from around the world fled totalitarianism of the left and right to come to us, the kind of beacon of freedom. And now look at this crazy world we're living in the last 2 years.
Going after that, my 12-year-old who's just turned 13, she goes, Dad, I don't want to do dancing anymore. And she and I said, why, darling? I knew what she was going to say. She said, because they won't let me do it next year. Because I'm 13 now, I'm not allowed to do it. So she doesn't want to do it. She spent 2 years trying to get to do it during, or 18 months during the pandemic, she wasn't allowed to do it anyway. Now she's gone back to it for 6, 7 months. No, I don't want, but she doesn't want to do it anymore because she doesn't want the altercation, the difficulty that's going to arise from the fact that now a week ago she was 12 or 2 weeks ago. That was fine. Now she's 13. Next year it's trouble. And she can see it coming.
Well, you want a human story. I mean, my niece, basically took the vaccine to, basically she wanted to go to the mall, go to the movies, just go shopping, hang out with her friends. And she had Moderna. The first Moderna was no trouble. The second one, well, let's just say she's had to wear a heart monitor at 17. I mean, what the hell is going on there? You know what I mean? I mean, that hit my own family. I mean, obviously I'd heard a lot of stories like this. But it's basically like, fucking hell, please share your...
That stops me from saying to my youngest, oh, just take the jab. You know what I mean? Because it's that stops me. But then there's all these other pressures that come on, like, what are you doing to stop your daughter from dancing? What's wrong with you? Let her dance. Yeah,
Jeannie Appleyard.
I just saw
a friend of mine pop up, Jeannie Appleyard.
Can I just give you a quick question to Graham or Topher? Anyone can answer this. What is a COVID coach? Because we came across our first one at one of our protests the other day, and Damien just
There's more than one. There was one at every gate to Marvel Stadium. There's a
every
COVID
entrance,
coach.
and it's all on him, a COVID coach. Now so any idea?
I've never heard of that.
1.5 meters apart.
Graham, I think you had something you wanted to chip in with as well, but I've never heard of that, so I can't add anything. Graham?
I haven't heard of it. I've seen a lot of funny reflective vests being worn by people of late. COVID coach, is he there to coach you on how to get COVID? What is he there?
He was there.
Maybe that's
He was
what it
simply
is.
there in
Follow
an
these
official
guys.
capacity. Someone's paying for him to be there.
free hug
He's
out.
there in an official capacity, and he's being paid.
hang
He's
on.
on the payroll.
I know what it is now. I have heard about it. He's actually got a secret recipe, a secret formula of a mixture of cocktails of vitamins and certain drugs we're not allowed to talk about that he gives people to help them, to coach them through the fact that if they do get COVID, they don't have to worry about going to a hospital.
Well, I got to say, the one I was looking at, Graham, was slightly overweight. I got to say, he probably wasn't doing himself, every favour in the world. But nonetheless,
And as soon as Damo went up to ask, basically, what is he? The police just went into overdrive and they blocked like a wall of cops to make sure Damien could not ask this obese COVID coach what he is.
there was a phone
And
call.
they all
Masked and separated, and literally 20 minutes away, there's a load of cops. Richard was there. He saw a load of cops standing together, unmasked, all standing together. And if you get on our site, it all got videoed. It's hilarious because Damien is just calling it out. And this is really interesting, Topher. You'll like this. Damien is calling them out, and then he goes up to the police unmasked, and he's basically pointing out the hypocrisy of it, and they walk away. Awkward.
Yeah, they walk
It's
away.
like you get the
They got
truth.
away from me.
Critical thinking truth is so clear, and it's like we can't handle that because it doesn't fit the current narrative we're all living in. And they turn and they all walk away. It's extraordinary video.
There are an enormous number of police that are doing everything they can, short of quitting their job or actually speaking out, to not go along with this. Some people say, well, they should all quit. I have a good relationship with a few police officers, and I can understand where they're coming from with the whole argument of, well, if all of the good officers quit, then what are you left with? There are a lot of people in Victoria Police who are simply trying to wait this out and get to the other side of it because they know it's wrong. There are police officers who take pride in the fact that they have not handed out a single infringement notice. They've not fined a single person over a single breach of anything. There are police officers who are proud of their ability to turn a blind eye and to not see things. There are many good people in there. They are making the choice to stay in there and to be there when we get to the other side of this. You can disagree with that choice, but they are still good people, and this is how they are fighting.
No, I'm not putting the police down. I don't mean to do that, Topher. They're in a situation where, and it's the rise of totalitarianism, they have to live within the lie. They have to support the lie. So when
there's actually a term.
They have to walk away. Sorry, Richard.
That's right. There's a term to describe this situation, and it existed in Soviet Russia in the last 10 or 15 years of the Soviet Union. It's called hyper-normalization. And there's a really fascinating filmmaker by the name of Adam Curtis who made a documentary about it, how we're living in a very similar age at the moment. It's where everybody knows the system is broken. Everyone knows the system is not working and is not even logical, but we kind of pretend that it is. And that we're in a kind of era in Western civilization, now particularly under COVID, of hyper-normalization. And this is a phenomenon, again, of a collapsing order. And, I highly recommend this documentary by Adam Curtis, anything by him on that.
It was interesting, Richard, because when I went over to the two female police officers who didn't have their masks on like the others did for the COVID theatre, they started to have a bit of a giggle and a bit of a chuckle at the fact that I was pointing that out. So it was actually quite a human moment. It was actually quite a human moment, which is quite nice in it. Yeah, that's right.
But they were laughing
not
at you.
With me.
Actually, hold on,
but
hold on.
Guys were wearing masks. What do we do without? Come on, quick! People coming together, and this is cause for panic. Come on, the whole state is here trying to stop people coming together and wear masks like you guys. There's two police standing next to each other with no masks on. But that's got to be quick. Come on, quick. Let's get them. No, nothing. Because it's drivel. It's drivel.
Should be
Rubbish.
Should
How
be
long
getting
gonna
charged like I did.
Yeah. So what do we do with our fines then? If those guys aren't getting fined, how do next week?
Wait for it.
These guys were wearing masks. Why are you guys wearing masks? Oh, because you're just over here. COVID doesn't come over here. COVID only goes over there, near the entrance where the COVID coach is. But COVID knows to keep away from here. Everyone relax. There's no COVID around here. You can tell that's why they haven't got their masks on. They also haven't got their masks on because it's all propaganda. It's propaganda from the government. And they know it. They know it. And there's no morality in it. That's why they're walking away. Because they know there's no morality in it. More no masks over here. More police with no masks. All masked over there, no masks over here. COVID's not here. There's no COVID over here. Relax, everybody. You can walk around here freely. No COVID.
Okay.
And people wonder why I want to hang around this guy.
Damien, can I just say, step aside Chase's war on everything. You've just taken their mantle as the kind of the live satire king of Australian media.
Oh,
These guys are real Chases.
No one will touch it because they won't put that on the ABC, as we well know.
No.
I know.
But that's,
It's extratraordinary, that, isn't it? You know, the level of
extraordinary.
media.
And I just want to comment out that's put together by platform. His a YouTube thing is Platform One Melbourne. His name's Joe. He does a lot of work with us, but he doesn't work with us. But he does a lot of work with us. Brilliant guy, and always active, always fighting, always onto it. Fantastic.
Graham?
I love it. Yeah,
Graham?
Yeah, guys, can I point something out that's really worthy of note? Those police officers there, they didn't put their masks on when they were being challenged. Why? Because they were caught out. The reason why I think a lot of people in the bureaucracy of health in Australia are not changing their attitude is because they realise they've been caught out. I think that's the danger that we're in now. We had in Qantas a wonderful thing called a non-punitive safety culture. If you screwed up and you wrote yourself up in a report so that others would learn, you were a hero. They treated you really well. But if you tried to cover anything up and extend the lie, you were considered a rogue pilot and you were out. We've got health bureaucrats. I know for a fact of some who really believe that they've taken this too far and they don't know how to come back from it.
Yes, that's a good point.
And what happens is you start perpetuating a lie then to protect a mistake. And that's how things go south. I'm here to tell any
protect the lie. Yeah.
I'm here to tell any health bureaucrat or any doctor or any person who feels that they've made a mistake that if they come out and say, look, I think we've made a mistake, you will be an absolute hero to the Australian
100%.
people.
100%. I think it was Solzhenitsyn who said they were lying to us. We knew they were lying. They knew that we knew that they were lying, but they kept lying. And without question, that's where we are now. We all the emperor has no clothes. We can see that even people who previously supported things up until a month or two ago are now starting to realize the emperor has no clothes. But you're absolutely right. They're so deep into it that they cannot afford to acknowledge that they actually got it wrong in the beginning.
You remember the party last week?
Daniel Andrews with no clothes.
At the party last week, I remember I brought Gus Till along, my friend who's just come back from Bali. He spent 2 weeks in a little concentration camp up in the Northern Territory and on the way home. But he actually, I don't know the exact words he used, but he had some interesting way of putting it. But basically, his point is that at the start of this event, people kind of went down the wrong road. They made the wrong decision. But now they're so invested in the wrong decision that they can't turn back. You know what I mean? They have to keep doing the lockdowns and the QR codes and the this and the passports because they feel they've set off down that road. Even though, as I said, none of it makes any sense. A lot of it is pointless. And I think they just have to be brave, or somehow we have to sort of break out
as
of
a
the
culture,
cycle.
isn't it, Richard? As a culture, we have an inability to take personal responsibility. And I think that's what people are so attracted from Graham Hood, because he comes, like Michael was saying, he came bursting onto the scene with that first ever video we saw of him talking about his personable foibles, the problems with him as a man, as a human in the world. And there's just so much admiration in that. And then he can be able to go on from that and make you.
Absolutely, we all have them.
Exactly. But it's the ability to own up to them and be able to have it.
To go back to that, Ryan, can I just do a few shout outs for Christmas shout outs to, there's a young woman who works with us called Grace. She was a nurse, a registered nurse. She used to live in. She's from Taiwan. She fought in all the battles in Taiwan when China was trying to take it over. And she said, we fought because we had nowhere to go. Where were we going to go? Swim in the ocean. And so she fought. Now she's come here for a better life. She was a nurse. She lost her job. And now she does streaming, video, stuff like this. And she comes with us. This is her. I adore her. I just want to say, you rock, Grace. Yeah, and she's a tiny little thing. She actually walks around with a dog in a backpack that sits there looking at everyone. And the other one is a guy that I've known for a long time. You might have met him, Topher, called Tom Vogel. And Tom Vogel comes with us. He does some amazing videos now of the fight and everything we're doing. And he's brilliant to work with. He's great fun. He drove the Dan truck with me up to the thing, and these people are in the background. So you see these videos going up. That's them. They prepare them. They edit it themselves. And as we get money through, we're trying to siphon it to them. Joe's the other one. Joe doesn't want to be seen. But and then we've got this guy who bring along. I'm not actually sure what Scott does. Damien brings him along. I'm not sure what he does. But he's just great fun to be around. Here he is. And that's
nice.
On the left is if you don't hug, that's how you feel. Of course, on the right is if you do. And so we're going to be setting him loose. You can either not hug him and you deal with the left, or you can hug him and you deal with the right.
No, he's security, Michael.
He's security.
I know,
He's security.
Great.
And so far, we've had
Damo,
no problems. We've had no problems, and that's because of his demeanor.
Funny.
He's like a deterrent.
He's so good. The other one, of course, is Abby Talk. I'll just bring him up. Is Steve? I'll just bring him up as we're talking. I don't know where I put him here, but as Steve, where did I put him?
Because I do want to go back to what you were saying too, Graham, before about that thing. Like, we've all got clay feet. I think that was an important point. I thought you were going to say something about it. So we'll get Steve up hopefully, and
here it is.
I'd like to pick your brain for that still.
Here it comes to this. So this is now Stephen. I met Stephen at the marches. The first march I saw was in Richmond, and he was dressed like a bookkeeper, and he had the loudspeaker, and he was telling people to sit down. And I thought, oh, you're the organizer. But he wasn't. He just actually turned up. He's a Croatian guy. He's fighting. So I thought, and then I saw him on the West Coast, the CFMEU. Then I saw him at the West Game, basically, and we got arrested on the Shrine together. And he got arrested quite brutally. He had one of his a really brutal arrest. And he drives the van for us and stuff for this. He's nonstop. I'm with his family today. They're a great family. So this
and his wife.
And his wife, yeah.
His wife's fantastic.
There's Susie's his wife. He's just fantastic. He's lousy at telling jokes, but he's trying to get better. Here's Grace and her dog. That's Joe at the back. I'm not supposed to show him, but there you are, Joe. That's her dog she carries around. And then there's this guy. This next guy, he was going to have a great singing career. He's a terrific voice, and he doesn't want to get jabbed, and they've all been cancelled. And this is Bradley. Now, he came with us to Warrnambool, basically did the whole thing. He did the carols of Candlelight with his friend Paul, and he's going to be coming with us to other towns. An absolute beautiful, gentle, but very strong soul, a young lion, and he doesn't care. And so he comes and he's a joy to be around. Great fun. So these are just some of the people. There's lots of others out, including the people behind me. There's lots of others, but so we're the head. But basically, there's a growing arm, including David Thrussell, who comes on the Ghost Show with us. David is just, I love him. And so so that's just a call out for an
pyramid.
The
pyramid. Can I jump in for a sec, Michael?
Sorry.
Can you have a quick look at the private chat? I've just sent you a couple of messages. There's something I'd love to do, but it's not my show, so I need to clear it with you first.
Sure.
Have a look at that. Have a look at your emails, and if you'd like to do it, this would be an exclusive. I haven't played this song in its entirety anywhere.
Is this by Mandy Rag?
Yes.
Yeah, Mandy Rag Mandy Rag actually contacted me one day with a very sad message, and she'd really lost it. She said, it was bordering on a suicide note. It wasn't, but it was bordering there. I said, I can't help you. I'm down here, but I'll post it online.
Yeah.
It had like 500 comments within 4 or 5 hours.
Yep.
And now she's an active part in this. So she told me that she's on this. I'll download it now. Okay, I'll just say I
It's-
can't.
So while you're doing that, is it possible to get back to Graham about the need for
Yeah,
humility?
you go,
because
Damien, you
there's
take
eternal
off.
verities in this culture that just aren't celebrated anymore. And I think humility is a really important one of those. And Graham, I thought you were going to say something before about the nature of we all have clay feet.
Well, the fact is, I've realised after 15 years in 12-step recovery movements, my wife and I run one called Recovery Road that we wrote together, that our strength lies in our vulnerability. Now, you can imagine if I had come out as this squeaky clean, Australian great patriot or whatever from that video, and people who knew my dark past with porn and sex addiction and everything got onto that, could you imagine the field day they would have had? I mean, at the end of the day, when I'm honest about who I am, I put a sword through any gossip there is about me.
Yeah.
And the strength of being vulnerable also gives other people permission to be vulnerable with you and say, you know what, I'm broken too. And when we realise that we're all broken, and all we've done all our lives is spend our whole lives performing to look unbroken, that's when we get things done in our lives. Now, in the old days, John the Baptist stood in the River Jordan and he screamed out to everybody, repent, repent. If I was to do that on these programs, people would say he's a religious nutter. But let me put it in another way. What John the Baptist was saying back then is, own your dirt. If you've got darkness that keeps you awake at night, you need to own it, because that's when evil thrives, in the dark. And when you're asleep and those things are eating away at you, they're things that are defects in your character that you need to fix up. And the best way to fix them up is to share them with like-minded people, come clean. That's what repentance is. And then you're covered then. You can wipe that and get on with your life. It's really important. And humility allows us to do that. I don't care what other people think of me. What other people think of me is none of my business. So I hope that sort of was going where you wanted it to go, Dave.
It's like the antiseptic sunlight of truth, isn't it? That's an antiseptic, and it's amazing they had to lock us down and keep us out of the sunlight for as long as they could and stuff too.
So
we would
if you send the link
fester
again,
in
I can't see the
insanity.
link.
Okay, I'll put it in the private chat, Michael.
Or put it in the email. Yeah, just send an email in the link, and I'll download it from there.
I sent you a great link to a song called Apocalyptical by Pussifer as well. That could be a good way to go out. It's kind of like, it sums up the last 2 years of what we've been living through. It's kind of an interesting song. It's the guy, lead singer from Tool, one of his solo projects.
Yeah, nice. I've just sent that through now, Michael.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Is that what Bob Hawke used to do, Graham? When Hawke would get on our TV screens and he would cry. He'd start crying. He was the Prime Minister. He was the strongest man in the country, purportedly. And he would cry, and Australians loved him even more for it every time he did it, didn't they? He'd admit some foible in himself.
Yeah,
I'm no Labor fan, but
sorry.
There were times when he played that card very well, I must be honest. I had an opportunity to tell Bob Hawke I hated his guts on the flight deck of one of my aeroplanes one day. It was a magic moment, and we were flying from Sydney to Adelaide. We were running late, and I got a message up from him saying, "Can you please speed up, because I'm going to be late for a speaking engagement." And I got on the PA, and he was notorious for calling pilots glorified bus drivers in 1989. And I said, "Ladies and gentlemen,
just be careful, because Michael was a tram driver for many years."
You're on theatre.
He's still really weird about it.
I said, for the benefit of ex-Prime Minister Bob Hawke, who's sitting back there, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that I've speeded up. We've come down low out of the headwinds. We're going to arrive in Adelaide about 10 minutes early. But you don't believe anything I tell you, because after all, I'm only a glorified bus driver. And the whole cabin erupted in laughter. And he sent up a note with it was kind of a jovial thing, like, "Oh, you're an old warhorse." And he came up to the flight deck when we pulled into the terminal in Adelaide, and he looked at me and he said, "You must have been involved in that pilot's dispute in 1989." And I said, "Yeah, I was." And I looked at him and I said, "You know what, Bob? I've hated your guts for the last 20 years. And now I look at you and I think, what on earth did I waste my time doing that for?" And he looked at me and he said, "Get in the queue behind Paul Keating, mate. Everybody hates my guts." And the co-pilot looked at me as if to say, "You just told the Prime Minister you hated his guts." But you know what? When we had the conversation, we both laughed at each other, shook hands, and it was a beautiful moment. And I'm really glad I had the chance to tell the Prime Minister I thought he was a whatever.
I've never been a
So there's a chance that Michael and Dan Andrews might achieve some reconciliation somewhere along the line.
Me?
One day, one
You.
day,
Vote
one
for
day.
them, someone, anyone.
In an
I give him a
alternate
free
universe.
hug.
Sorry, Richard, you were going to say something before.
Oh no, I mean I've never been a huge fan of the Labor Party, but I was a kind of fan of Bob Hawke. And when I used to run nightclubs, one of the most famous clubs I ran in the 90s was the Hellfire Club. So I've got a bit of a past of sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of thing. But it was during the time I was running Hellfire that I was hailing a cab up near King's Cross, and Bob Hawke was hailing one next to me, and so we kind of got into the same cab. And I said, just go wherever Bob Hawke wants to go. So we went halfway around Sydney, and I did, just to hang out with him. And he was a really nice guy, very chatty. But I wasn't exactly very political at that age. I was kind of more interested in nightclubs and having a good time and stuff like that. But he seemed like a nice bloke. I've heard good things and bad things about him. And
where did he want to go? Where did he want to go, Richard? Sounds like he couldn't go there because you're in the cab with him, so you started driving around Sydney.
Well, actually, what happened was I got in the cab first, and then he came out and hailed the cab, and then the cab driver looks at me and is like, "Come on, get out of my cab." And I said, "Just pick him up, and I'll go wherever he's going." He didn't go too far. I think he went down to
I'll go to Yarralumbla with him.
Darling Harbour or something like that. It wasn't that far. And you're going to see some lawyer, but he seemed like a nice bloke, very personable, and didn't get a selfie. We didn't have phones like that.
He was probably going to pick up Blanche when he shouldn't have been at the time. But anyway.
But you made a good point, though. I think we are all flawed and stuff. But if you can speak the language of the people, I think it really Bob Hawke, love him or hate him, definitely did speak the language of the people. I think people on the left and right kind of liked him, even after his reign. They liked him, because he was.
Well, look what he did with the America's Cup when he said that famous line: "Any boss who tax is employed tomorrow." Is that now ScoMo could never achieve that ever.
Never.
That he could never have that moment ever. It's just not in. People will probably go to work to protest. The thing. So I'll end the song. I'll end the show with that song. I just had to make it into a video. I can't play MP3s on here, so I've just added Mandy Rag's photo to it, so you can see who it is.
Nice. Good work, Michael. Top work.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Everyone watching, as hard as it might have been to Merry Christmas. It's a great day. This is Dave's celebration. I feel like we are.
This?
We staying? You staying, Graham?
No. I'm just saying that's the. No, I'm not. I'm just saying when we do finish, we'll end with that song. So I'm just.
I thought you were winding up.
Woody's used to my slow chats. We go for at least 4 hours. I mean, you sign up after less than 4 hours.
We're doing a marathon. We're doing a Christmas marathon.
Christmas marathon.
Accolades for the fact I put the video together so quickly. Okay, that's all.
Okay,
and right.
He's good. Technically,
and well done. Can I pick up on what Hoodie was saying a minute ago?
Anyone else in this outfit?
and add another layer to that, and that is social media can be extremely toxic on the one hand, but on the other hand, it actually gives us an opportunity to be our own sort of media platform and to control the narrative about ourselves to a certain degree. And I think this is going to be valuable for some people that are listening. You may be familiar with Carly Soderstrom. She's the young lady who runs a small business. She's a photographer. She poured her heart out on Instagram and it went viral, got 40 million views. And then the mob came for her. An ex-business partner came out of the woodwork because she's got a liquidated fashion business. She ran a fashion business for 10 years. Now, a business that lives for 10 years, that's a successful business in my view, but eventually it ended in liquidation. And the mob came for her in a really horrific way. And she was getting some really bad advice at the time. And we just happened to have met a few months before that. And so she reached out to me in desperation. I wouldn't say on the brink of suicide, but she was on that spiral. She was heading in that direction. She reached out to me and she said, all I'm being told by these crisis management companies is that I'm done. I need to delete all my social media accounts. I can never have one again. I can never be public again. I'm done. I'm burned. And I said, no, that's an absolute lie. What you need to do is unplug for a couple of weeks. And then when you're ready, you come out and do exactly what Hoodie did with his video. You front foot the things that are the skeletons in the closet, right?
Oh, yeah.
You put them on the table. And in so doing, you now own them. They now are part of your story. And what she did was beautiful. She came out, she took a couple of weeks off. She came out and she made the mob coming for her a part of her narrative now.
Exactly.
And everyone knows about it. No one can drag that stuff back out of her past and use it as a weapon against her anymore because she's dealt with it. She's front-footed it. She's owned it. And now she's got more power than she ever had before. So I don't know who needs to hear that, but this is possible. You can do that.
No, I mean, I've been deplatformed myself. I run the Melbourne Underground Film Festival, and I'm somebody from the art scene, film.
Do you have a documentary category?
Yeah, I've made documentaries, absolutely. I do have a documentary category. Send it in. It's
Excellent.
accepted already. It's accepted. The Melbourne
All right,
Underground Film
excellent.
Festival. It's accepted. There you go. I don't need to see it.
We're doing
It's in.
deals. We're doing deals on
Doing deals online. But yeah, look, I got deplatformed because I supported the no vote in the whole, gay and lesbian thing. Because I am somebody in the arts who is slightly right wing, and supports conservative traditional things. And I mainly did it as a shit stir to all my lefty liberal filmmaker friends. I did it mainly as a shit stir because I love a good argument. I love a good dialectic. I'm a contrarian, etc. But on the day of the yes vote winning, I woke up after a big night out, wrote this kind of very nasty post, and I posted. I thought just to my friends, but no, I think it had gone public, and someone took a screenshot. It went everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Topher said just then. Is I disconnected for a few days. I thought about it, and then I just owned it. And I've had a lot of gay filmmakers I supported, and they, by the way, they were the people who rang me up when I put my foot in it. They were like, "Oh, love you are gay, sweetheart," and all this stuff. I was like, "Oh, you've done it this time. You've really done it this time." So they were the ones who were really nice. All my friends who I thought maybe were kind of okay with the fact that I'm right wing or whatever, but who'd never really commented and had heard me say things a lot worse than the thing I actually said. They turned on me and stuff. So it's kind of interesting, to be deplatformed and go for that experience. But if you think about Jordan Peterson, I mean, that's basically what he did. What Topher said before is he just owned it. He said, "Yeah, I have a problem with this," and he explained it. And if you think about it, Jordan Peterson's whole career is based on the fact that he said, when they said, "Oh, you can't say that about trans people," he said, "Well, yes, I can. And I can explain exactly why, as a matter of fact. And I could explain the reason behind the things I said, and I've just made it part of my narrative, and I've continued on." So Topher's point is fantastic, and I want to applaud him for making it. That's the reason behind the things I said, and I've just made it part of my narrative, and I've continued on. So
Before we move on, can I just... Sorry, Rich. Gary Markham, before we move on, can I just... Gary Markham, my best friend who used to come into my home because I'm unclean, lol. As she drove off, she yelled, "Get vaccinated." So that's my best friend. So Gary, I'm sorry. I just want to read out these things. I saw this thing about apartheid with a black female, South African black female playwright. And she said sharing the pain is one of the paths you need to heal. And so if things like that do come up, I'll just read them out just so it's actually out there, just so we document that this actually happened today. Today, we lack the courage of our humanity. Not all of us, but some of us. We did extraordinary, cruel things today. And excluding family members because of their choice over something you've got a 99.5% chance of getting over. It's just cowardly.
I think it's extraordinary.
We were that when we were doing the free hugs outside the cricket. So Damien was on one side and we're on this side with the Free Hug Army trying to get the cricketers to hug us. And a lot of people were, but other ones, like even guys are going, trying to get past these women. And there was a lot of women, and it's really interesting. Some of these men probably haven't had a hug from anyone, a woman other than say their wife or their mother or something like that in 2 years. And here they are offered free hugs from the various women. You could have guys there if you wanted a guy. There was all these people there waiting to hug you. And they're terrified and walking away, and they're masked up, and the fear. And you're thinking, what are you frightened of? You've got a 99.5% chance of getting over this naturally without any interaction at all, even without ivermectin, just by yourself. And here you are offered this beautiful free hug, and you're shying away from it. You're terrified.
The media is terrified people.
You saw it. It was extraordinary.
Can I say?
Everyone,
you go.
No,
the media has obviously terrified people, the last 2 years. And I mean, I think it terrified all of us. The first 2 months, I think we all bought into it to some extent. You know what I mean? Like when the first lockdown happened, we were like, I was using the hand sanitizer when I went to the supermarket or whatever, but then I think slowly
you were using it when you came out of my house the other day.
Well, absolutely. I use it sometimes. I've always been a bit, what's it called? Kind of Lady Macbeth. You two are like COVID central, mate. You're hugging everybody. Jesus Christ.
Graham, I've actually called you the hug general, because the images, I think and what you need to do, Graham, is if you've got a bevy of photographers around you, they've got photographs of you hugging them, but I'm telling all the photographers, grab the face of the person who's been hugged because they're joyous. If you see the videos, they melt. Even some of the people on the side, you see them shudder and then they come forward and they hug. It's like there's this divide between us, and there's just this tiny little bit of courage can get together and they radiate. And then we cheer now. We have like a huge celebration of cheering. And around them, even those people who don't want to be hugged, even they can't help smiling. And that's how we show Dan or the society is offering you division and masks and living in fear. We're offering you hugs.
Yeah.
Live on the edge. Hug
One of my
on
absolute
right.
favorite things that happens at the protests is the human interaction. And people come up to me and it's always it's weird. And Graham, I'm sure it's the same for you. It's a weird space to be in where people sort of recognize you and feel like they know you a little bit, etc. And people are very, very kind and very gracious, and they're kind of like apologetic about coming up to me. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, can I get a photo, whatever." But my absolute favorite are the ones that say, "I don't want a photo. I don't need anything else. Can I just have a hug?" And we have a bear hug, male, female, I don't care. If you want to hug and you see me out on the street, so I don't care if it's a protest or not. If you want to hug and you see me somewhere out there, I'm all up for hugging. Okay. I will give you a bear hug. I don't care. Young, old, male, female. Let's regain that connection that's been lost, because it is. Michael, you're absolutely spot on.
People radiate. Now, just show you this image here. Here's Graham. See that's that's a 4-star general hug there, Graham.
Yep.
I reckon we should get the army. We should do things. I'm like a captain, So I sit there on the microphone, just annoying the hell out of anyone who won't hug. And but I get hugged as well. But what's extraordinary is in these last few times that we've done it, and we've done it several times now, you don't get sick of it. By the end of the day, you've had maybe 100 hugs, and it doesn't wear you out.
And these are extraordinary times we're living in. I mean, to think about it today, this is the first time, at least in my lifetime, where a certain class of people have been kept out of churches on Christmas Day. You know what I mean? It's extraordinary. You know what I mean? And there's no each day
the churches open now. I thought the churches were open.
They were open, they're open.
They're open now, but there was a long time where they were segregated or shut,
which is sacrilegious.
The fact that they allowed that to happen is to me reeks of idolatry. You've got to make a choice. Who do you serve? Do you serve God or do you serve the state? You cannot serve two masters. And unfortunately, the majority of the church chose to serve the government.
Of course.
It's interesting because
Michael talks about this a
lot. Hang on, Richard. I just want to, because Michael talks about this a lot too. So the need for a new church. Everyone, and a lot of us talking about the idea of it being a spiritual awakening. So the spirit is awakening to something as a result of, the difficulty of the circumstances we find ourselves in many respects for many people. And that's often how a spiritual awakening happens, in the depths of despair. So I'd be interested in asking you, Graham, about the 12-step fellowship that you and your wife have started up. What's that about? What's it for? And who can join? Because that's certainly a way of enlivening the spirit.
Yeah, well, anybody can join. It's for anybody with any hurt, habit, or hang-up, and I don't know anyone on the planet who hasn't got them. And we just take them through the basic fundamentals of the 12 steps. The first step is dealing with denial. Denial stands for don't even know I am lying, which is such a predominant word in what's going on in our narrative today. It has restored a lot of people. It's gotten people who've been on antidepressants for 30 years off their antidepressants. But everything we do is Christ-centered, because everything about the 12 steps is based in biblical principle. And it's a wonderful movement. It's been going for a long time. I believe it's running in a prison in Jacksonville in Florida. Somebody found one of our Recovery Road books, passed it on to one of the chaplains over in the Florida prison system, and I got an email saying, "Do you mind if we run your program in our prisons for our inmates?" And we said, "Yeah." And they said, "What will it cost us?" And we said, "Nothing. It doesn't belong to us. It belongs to God." So we sent them the printing formats for the books, and we said, "Just print them and use them." So it deals with. It's not specific like AA that deals with alcohol. It deals with everything, and it's been wonderful. But what I want to touch on, because we're talking about this now, is something that was brought up with the Zoom I had today. One of the psychologists said, "How would love deal with this situation that we're in?" And I immediately opened the Bible. I'm not a Bible basher, but listen to this, because most of you will know this. It's in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And you've all heard it. Anyone who's been to a wedding will have heard this. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. It is not puffed up. It does not behave rudely. It does not seek its own. It's not provoked. It thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, right? Rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never fails. And further down it says, and now abide faith, hope, and love, these three. But the greatest of these is love. Now, we're told in Scripture that love is who God is. That's the character of God, is love. So what I just read represents the character of God. And we're meant to represent the character of God. So if I replace the word love with Graham suffers long and is kind, Graham does not envy, Graham does not parade himself, that really hits me because I don't measure up. And that's what we need to do to measure up. And if we want to know what love would do in this situation, that's how love would treat the people who said, you can't come to your family Christmas this weekend. You can't, get vaccinated. Some of the horrible things that have been said. The best way to deal with that is with love. Love does truly conquer all. And know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I mean, it's an absolute. It never fails. When I saw Michelle forgive the man who molested her every 6 years as a kid, every weekend for 6 years as a kid, I saw her forgive him to his face. And he said to her, that's really good, Michelle, and I want you to know that I forgive you too because you know you were just as responsible as I was. When I wanted to kill him, she put her hand up and said no. And she said, God, give me strength. And she looked at the guy and she said to the guy, despite everything you've just said, I still forgive you. And I saw evil leave that man. He lost his power. And I coined a phrase that day that grace and evil can't live in the same house, and evil is always the first to leave. So today, my friends, today, my beautiful tribal family members, if you've been persecuted today of all days, love your persecutors. You take your power back when you do that. And you can love them because they're acting out of their fear. They're not acting out of some self-righteous position. They're scared witless. And you're a threat to them because you're representing truth.
Look at this comment here that relates to that. My husband decided to make a statement last night. He attended midnight mass at the local Catholic church in his pajamas, refused to sign in, refused to wear a mask, and sang during the recorded Silent Night Carol. He has received many emails forbidding him to attend mass, volunteer, or do altar duties because he's unjabbed. He said it was a sober service, not a celebration of Jesus' birth. Everyone was wearing masks, socially distanced, and not allowed to sing or embrace. The church has got a complete lack of courage, which I think
that's religion,
people are not going to forgive them for it.
Well, it's against institutionalization and the pyramid of power, and this is where we see the corruption at the top of these pyramids. And I think Hoodie's got a really great point about spirituality. I consider myself a Christian now, but I'm not a member of any particular church because I appreciate the various. I appreciate Protestant, Catholic, whatever. I'm not interested in dogma. I've never been particularly interested in dogma. I've always been interested in philosophy and things like this and thinking. And this was the thing that actually led me back to the church because I went through a period where I was as far from the church as you could get running the Hellfire Club, I can assure you. So, if anything, kind of like studying essentially the occult, which I did for a long time when in my 20s, it scared the shit out of me, okay, because it's real. I met a lot of people who are involved in the occult who are like a joke. They're like white witches and they dress up a bit in snow. But I met a few people who were the real deal, who could curse you and something bad will happen to you. And I saw this and it scared the living shit out of me, okay? And I never really practiced it, but I studied it. I've always been somebody, I love books and I've always been interested in the mind and stuff. So I got interested in people like Carl Jung. And I think Carl Jung would agree with what Hoodie was talking about there. These kind of archetypes, these kind of eternal symbols that are behind everything. And the kind of spiritualism and, Jung is the kind of godfather of the New Age thinking and stuff. So I think it's very timely what he's talking about.
Yeah, I don't think Carl Jung and I would get on very well at all.
Has anyone heard of the incident?
Agree with everything he says.
Sorry, Graham. Has anyone heard about the incident in Toowoomba? of some pub or something that was letting everybody in. The authorities turned up to close it down. Then they decided they'd come back the next day to do it. And when they came back the next day, the locals had surrounded the pub and wouldn't let them approach it.
No, that
Wow.
was the Ego Cafe at Ormo.
Ego Cafe, is that what it is?
Yeah, the Ego Cafe at Ormo on the Gold Coast. It's in a semi-industrial area. And
Okay.
this guy, when restaurants and cafes in all that area are empty because they're following these ridiculous mandates, he had people pouring in. And he didn't have enough staff because for some reason. And he said, look, I'm not worried about QR codes. That's somebody else's job. Just come in. If you don't wear a mask, I'm not going to challenge you. I'm too busy making coffees. And the cops saw all these people there and they came in and said, you shouldn't be doing this. And he said, well, mate, I'm too busy running my business. I've got to keep this business going. I haven't got time to, enforce do your job. And he was really nice to them. And all the people there were saying, leave him alone, leave him alone. And the next day he had 1,000 people there and he was employing people out of the queue who were buying coffee to make coffee. Can you make coffee? Yeah, quick, I need you. And the very next day the cops came and said, look, we're not going to fine you, but you really got to start towing the line. And he said, well, I'm sorry, I can't and I won't. I've got a business to run and you do what you've got to do, but I'm going back in to make more coffee. And the next day when they said they were going to come, they came and they fined him. And then the very next day they said they were going to come and shut him down. And there must have been 1,000 people all linking arms around the coffee shop. The cops did a drive-by and gave it a miss.
I think
That's extraordinary. That
it's
is
very interesting
really
the way
extraordinary.
it's very interesting the way that they've forced the enforcement of these totalitarian rules onto people who run businesses. It's actually a sign of their weakness, I believe, because they don't basically have the manpower to enforce it themselves. So they're trying to make everybody compliant. And I mean, a lot of people are compliant with it. A lot of people aren't as well. I mean, many people are just whatever, obviously in retail, for example, there was that whole problem where you've got to flash your vaccination thing or not. To get into some stores. That's been dropped on the 15th. It was dropped for Christmas. Whether it'll come back or not, I imagine it will, knowing Daniel Andrews and a few others. But I think that's a sign of their weakness because they don't have the manpower to essentially Soviet Union Western nations. And this is our way. This is how we can wriggle out of the trap that they're setting for us.
Well, I've had a really.
Sorry, Graham.
Sorry.
Can I just read this out? Laura D'Angelo. We really need to stop APRA. My son got an adverse reaction to jab, 14 years old, and I've been handling the situation on my own. We had a guy from another one that we streamed to, Australian Independent Free Press Network. He actually called up a heart clinic. What do you call them? Cardiologist. To say that he was having heart issues. When could he get in? They said, look, we're so busy, we can't get you until February. And he wanted to play it, but the lawyer said, no, you can't because you recorded them without their permission, so you can't play it. But the person actually said, we are swamped with myocarditis. That's the earliest we could fit you in. So what the hell are you going to do with your myocarditis? That was happened about a month ago. So what the hell are you going to do for 3 months with it dying? So,
guys, I did an interview a few nights ago with an old mate of mine in the airline industry, Captain Derek Fox. I don't know whether you guys saw it. But between the two of us, there's 108 years of aviation experience and 55,000 flying hours. And Derek's a great guy, and he's been struggling with coming out. He has been double jabbed, and he had a shocking adverse reaction, really, really bad. And he was on there talking about how the cardiologist that was treating him at a hospital in Melbourne said, you're number 22 so far this morning that's had an adverse cardiac reaction to what's going on. And he documented everything. So, we need to get this out there. But listen, I know we're going to run out of time, and I really want to share something, and I don't want to dominate. I'll back out after this, please.
Dominate. Good luck against Richard. Before you go,
Look,
Graham,
Richard's notorious.
Graham, before you start, can I just want to thank you and Topher for when we did the op shop protest. That was a test. I met Topher. We met Topher. I don't know how we got into that bar that we won't mention, but it was fucking fantastic to sit in a bar and drink beer and smoke cigars. So someone let us all get together. Asia, you missed your chance. But what we did is with Morgan, and Rukshan, the great Rukshan, is we came together and said, let's go with this story. I contacted Graham, and on this one day, we were all tackling it, and it worked. And I'm still seeing reactions now. People are still sending me things have been shared about the salvos. So it caused a ripple effect. And so there was a few people protesting using Rookshop streaming, Topher, Morgan, and then in the evening, Graham, you came in and went poof and gave him a king hit. I think it shows a real power of the independents coming. Also, the Australian Free Independent Network was sharing it as well. So it comes together, and I'm really looking forward in the new year of if Topher or any of you go, look, we got this story, guys. Maybe we should make a time, and we won't tell anyone it's coming, but we'll lead the narrative. And we've got a lot that we can go with. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I thought that was a great experiment.
It was
Graham,
really
I'm desperate
good.
to hear this story.
Yeah, go ahead, Graham.
Okay. I'm aware, as you guys are, that there are a small army of people that meet out of the front of the government houses everywhere in Australia, from the state and federal. They are quietly standing there as if they were at the dawn service on Anzac Day. No speakers, no agendas, nothing other than to make the governors aware that the people aren't happy. Now, when 20 or 30 people stand there, it's a wonderful gesture. But if 20 or 30,000 stand there, it's a movement, a powerful movement. It happens every day. We don't hear about it. They're not self-promoting. But why it's important is that the governors of the states and the federal have reserved powers that we have seen before. I mean, the Prime Minister goes and the Premier goes to the governor to dissolve Parliament for an election, and he goes to be sworn in. Now, we know that the governors are in bed with the politicians. We know that. Somebody told me Daniel Andrews' sister-in-law is Governor of Victoria. I don't know if that's true or not. We know that in Queensland, the former Chief Health Officer is now the Governor-General, and she and Anastasia get on really well. But forget all that. If we could get half the people we get to the Saturday rally to stand every day at between 11 and 1 in front of the governor's mansions, no noise, silently, standing there in reverence to the soldiers the 100,000 who lost their lives, Australian soldiers, so we don't have to have rallies. And if they just stood there quietly, and I was on the tractor the other day trying to get some grass cut down, and I'm thinking about how could we extend that to something bigger. Now, Monica put out an SOS video that went viral around the world, and 20 major cities in the world protested for Australia on one day. And I thought about the Yellow Revolution in the Philippines in 1986. People power won the day. Now, if instead of having everyone marching around with slogans and flags and giving mainstream media an opportunity to film a swastika or anything else, if everyone wore white and protested around the world, no slogans, no speeches, no egos, no nothing, just the people saying and screaming nothing, the greatest noise the world will ever hear is the silence of millions of people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
I
I suggested uniforms early on, some kind of outfit, I mean, because there's a group called the Yellow Vests that was just wearing like that yellow vest thing. I mean, obviously that kind of tied in with the that union protest. That was like the red vests, wasn't it? The John Sitka, thing, CMFNU. But yeah, some identifying outfit. I think it doesn't need to be. It could be anything. As I said, something as simple as a yellow vest or white jacket or something. You're going to get in trouble if you wear white, though, I imagine. And
I think we're too nice, though. Like the Channel 7 protest the other day, it was nice to go, but we'd informed the police. Channel 7 wasn't there. They obviously there's going to be a protest. Everyone had left. The police were there. Everyone's there. Everyone's this. But just like going through the motions, where to me, when we did the Salvation Army and then the St. Vincent's, we had a handful of people and we got everybody talking because everyone's like, what? And then the police are turning up going, what are you doing here? What are you protesting for? What? And they're all amiss, and everyone's talking and using the power of streaming and the internet and thinking otherwise. And Damien and I are doing no slogans. We're just speaking, going back, taking turns. And then Damien did his classic pigeon thing, which is now everyone's still laughing about how he told the police that we're using pigeons to communicate. And it was, and so that's what I think. I do think we can achieve a lot by doing more protests more often with smaller groups. And we're outside the workers' place before they know they're coming in. St. Vincent's, we had a smaller crew and they were still shaken. You could feel themselves shaken. What do they do? What's happening? You know?
Well, I think it's.
I don't know what
obviously
role we play, but the unvaccinated were suddenly allowed into those institutions where they weren't before. They weren't allowed to access them.
That's true.
And then
Was
made
it
a
us?
big
I can't
announcement
say
of
for
it.
sure.
Everybody's allowed in.
It worked. It worked.
That was the next week.
They're allowed to access charities. Yeah.
You know, I think there are different strategies, of course. I mean, and, you know, you shouldn't just choose one strategy. You know,
That's
there
right.
should be a multiplicity of strategies. And I also, like, before I came on, Topher was making the point about, you know, many of us on the freedom movement have different ideas and stuff. And that's actually a good thing, you know what I mean? And that we don't need to, we can argue about this and that, but we shouldn't be arguing with each other where, oh, I can't stand this person or that person, or, you know, this kind of infighting. You have seen a bit of infighting going on. Some people just, you know, tend to make kind of hate videos about different members of the freedom movement, like that guy, Chris Scoveries or whatever. He's always criticizing the Cossack guy or whatever. It's like, well, I like them both. I like Chris Scoveries and I like Cossack.
I think it's changing. What I think is happening is that the initial ones, a few of them, yeah, I think we're getting organized now. I'm talking with lots of people about getting seriously organized, just about strategies like this and having open discussions about how we're going. And so I think this year is going to be different. And that's happening around the world. I saw in Austria or somewhere they broke the police line and they had one line of people linked arms and they moved forward towards a police line. They had about a meter or 2 meter break. And then there was another group of people linked arms and another group. And they went through this line and they just went through. So everywhere around the world, people are organized.
But it's interesting. It's like Graham said, though, isn't it? In a way, it's like they've gone too far in one direction. The bureaucracy and the politicians, etc., have gone too far in one direction. Because Greg Hunt's come out, and on the 4th, it's 4 months for a booster instead of the 6 months as it's 4. And then by the end of January, it's 3 months.
Yeah,
he's already.
Guys, I have to. Please, guys, can I please? This is so important to me. It's not funny. I don't want us to get sidetracked. There was a message that just came through from somebody who was at the West Australian Government House today, and I believe Kim Beazley is the Governor of Western Australia. He came out and berated the 30 people at the front gate, saying he was ashamed of them and he treated them like peasants. He wouldn't do that if 30,000 people were there.
Oh, that's
Now, guys, why this is important?
Was there.
Please listen. Please hear me. Please hear me. They are coming for our kids.
Yeah.
Now, the governors may be corrupt. They may be. But nothing makes backbenchers more nervous than seeing people standing in silent protest where the damage can be done. And the damage can be done with great respect when the governors realise that the people aren't happy. And they have the reserve power to call elections, and they have the reserve power to fix this constitution. Because we can sit here all night long, and we can glorify different things that are happening everywhere. We can speak the love that we're speaking, but if we don't get this thing done, we're toast. We are toast. And what we have to do is put whatever power we can into peaceful, loving, compassionate, respectful protests that will make a difference. And at this moment, the governments, the backbenchers need to be scared of what's going on. They need to be afraid of what's happening so that they start lobbying from within. And that can, the way I see it now, because everyone's becoming used to the weekend protests, and they are good for our morale. They are good for our people. They are good for the tribe. And the protests we're doing out the front of the various organisations like St. Vinny's and those others, and we need to do it out the front of APRA. The Stuff Cafe lockdown.
APRA, watch out, we're coming.
The Stuff Cafe lockdown is doing is absolutely brilliant. It's small,
100%.
hard hitting here and there, and we're promoting all that. But the action has to be at the government houses, and I'm calling on anybody who's following me and hearing me. We have to change the constitution. It can only be done through the reserve powers of the governors. The constitution fixes borders and internal borders which shouldn't be there. It fixes the whole mandate issue. It fixes medical conscription. The whole thing needs to be rebuilt. And the only way I can see at the present that we can keep the fight on every day is by reinforcing those who were told today by Kim Beazley that they're trash.
Yeah.
And
Well, I hope you're right,
sorry,
Graham, and you're right. That's what I was saying about the Greg Hunt. It doesn't matter what we're doing, how many thousands of us there are every weekend, because in January, he's saying it's 4 months, and then by the end of January, it's 3 months. And we know by the 10th in Victoria that kids under 11, bang, they can be jabbed as well. But the problem with the governors, like Dessau, we've got here, however you say her name in French, I can't do that, doesn't matter. I don't think she has the constitutional powers to sack the government. She can sack the government,
that's gone.
but it has to be signed off by Daniel Andrews.
That's right.
Which will never happen. You know, I mean, this is a very crazy
It would
conspiracy.
put pressure on him. It would still put serious pressure on him if she was to sack him. Absolutely. Political pressure would come heaped on him, but still, he has to sign off on it.
But the real issue
won't
is
happen.
that it frightens the daylights out of the backbenchers.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I get
They're
that.
the weak link.
On another point, though, Graham, we've got a website being built now by someone, and he's getting our servers, I believe, in Russia. Can you believe Russia now is a protector of freedom? So they
Vladimir.
can't take them down. So the website's going to be done. We're also moving Rumble, but it looks like Rumble might be bought over. But there's another thing called Odyssey, which works on a blockchain. I have no friggin' idea what that is. But apparently that
sounds
can't be
good though,
taken
Michael.
down.
Just say
Sounds
it.
good.
It sounds good.
But that can be saved too. So basically, everybody's watching now. We're on Facebook now, which was remarkable. They took me down the other day and said you got a 6-day ban. I protested because I said I couldn't even say. They got back and said we're so sorry. We're so sorry. And I'm like, really? So I should have framed it. But basically, we have to move over because one of the other battlegrounds is censorship. It's getting our word out. So if we've got our servers overseas and the independents are working from Russia or wherever, and then we're on other channels, unlike Facebook, where we can say what we want and we're uncensored, we're powerful. They can't stop us. It's like pirate radio in England years ago, and we can keep banging away there. And the other thing too, I think this is really important because I was talking to Steve today, the Croatian, and now they've lived through it, and they said in the new term, they're going to come for us. He said they're just going to come and try take us and silence us. So it's very important that Topher is who he is. So if Topher gets arrested, the rest of us are going, there's a campaign like the Julian Assange campaign, Free Topher, goes around the world. And it's the same for everyone. They do something to you, Graham, it's around the world. And it's to anyone. And that's why I'm trying to do photography and write stories about people in our freedom movement, from singers to organizers to some of the young guys, simply so people know them. And so if they do get arrested and they vanish, they can be martyrs, basically. You know, this is other strategies that we have to prepare for and talk about as we move forward, because just in case we need them. So
can I jump in, Michael?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, what have we achieved? We've done all these protests. People have done all these things. What have we actually achieved? Daniel Andrews got his legislation. Nothing's looking better. The mandates are still in place. It's all hopeless. Let's take stock for a second. And Michael, I know that you recognize this, but I think it's worth putting words to it. We've achieved a hell of a lot. Let me just go through a couple of things that have happened as a result of the work that we've put in so far. Number one, Daniel Andrews barely got his legislation through, and it's not the legislation that he wanted. He had to compromise on certain things. The political cost to him, he looked weak for the first time. We pushed him to the point that he looked weak for the first time. Now, yes, we lost that particular battle in the end, but that's a very significant thing. But there's a bigger cultural thing going on. And I know this is very close to your heart, Michael. In the past, the progressives, I'll use the American terminology because I think it's sort of better than the Australian, the progressives of the world, the pro-government control over our lives people, which is what they actually are. They don't realize that. Have thought that the streets belonged to them, protest belonged to them, the arts belonged to them, music belonged to them, theater belonged to them. This was their domain. And what's really interesting now is we've flipped that on its head. The streets actually now belong to us. We've become the counterculture. And what's happening right now is we are learning to think like a counterculture, and they are having to deal with the reality that they're actually now the culture. Now, being the culture, the prevailing culture, they've got the government on their side, they've got the media on their side, they've got celebrities on their side. That might seem like a good thing, but it breeds this unique level of apathy. And when they come out and they try and run their counter protests, we have a couple of 100,000 people show up to our protest. They have a few thousand people show up to their counter protest. That's the apathy beginning to kick in their world. We've now got musicians coming out with some kick-ass songs, some kick-ass music. You're going to hear one of those songs at the end of the show tonight. And there's so many. I mean, Michael mentioned some more earlier. We're beginning to take over the arts and the music scene. This is stuff that they were not ready for. This was never going to happen in their wildest imaginations. And we are beginning to take ground in places that they never thought we were ever going to be able to do. We've achieved a hell of a lot. And as you sit here at the end of 2021 going, oh, fuck, is there another year of this ahead of me? It seems hopeless. It seems like we're not getting anywhere. Listen, we haven't won the war yet. I acknowledge that. And like we said earlier, this has a long way to go. All right, look after yourself because we've got to be in this for the long haul. But do not allow yourself to believe that we haven't made progress. We have achieved some incredible things. Look at any war. The aggressor always takes ground to start with because they're the aggressor. They were the one who was prepared, who was ready. It takes time for the counterattack to form. And the counterattack is forming right now. You're looking at it on the screen right now with these incredible gentlemen and so many others. There is a small army of people. The cream is rising to the top. The generals like Graham are standing out from the pack. And we are beginning to get organized, to get unified, to get around each other in ways that have never happened before. The fight back in 2022 is going to be freaking exciting. So stick around and stay tuned because 2022 is going to be a very different year to last year and the year before.
And I think it's interesting.
We even have, sorry, Richard, we even have people in the country offering us places like to go to, like, say, for Damien or Graham or yourself, Topher, you can go there and have a few days away from everything to get yourself back together. They're offering that for free and they're contacting us and saying, look, you come here. We've got acres and acres. There's a hut and stuff. I went down to a beach where a family has sort of a private beach. I was blessed, you know what I mean? By Andrew Beale and his family, and there's and this is happening too. So there's a network organically growing. And the other thing too is we're fighting for it. We've got nothing to lose. We're fighting for it. Well, a lot of who we're up against, these police, and I don't see them as bad. They're doing a pay packet. Their heart's not in it, and our heart is in it. So that's on our side too. Sorry, Rich, what were we going to say?
And it's also interesting to chip away at people who are, you know, Topher made the point about people who support the system. You know what I mean? Many of them consider themselves leftists or left-leaning liberals. I mean, you know, when you point out to them that, you know, I mean, basically major corporations are on their side. I mean, big media is on their side. Big pharma is on their side. What's called the traditional left or the old left never used to have these people on their side. What the hell are they doing? Supporting these fucking people.
The reality is they've been on their side for a long time now, and they operate under the pretense of making out they're still fighting the man, even though they are the man.
But no, I mean, and again, when we spoke about the paradigm, you know, switching, I mean, someone put it to me, it's like the, you know, the new right is the old left, and the new left is the old right. The way the old right used to be kind of like censoring everybody, shutting people down, and behaving in a kind of cuntish way, if I can use that word, pardon the French, but you know, like it's like that's the way the new left behaves today. So it, you know, I think, you know, it's interesting because I think you get a lot of people falling away. You know, I mean, even in the whole, for example, the recent election, people who supported Donald Trump, like myself, and other people who supported Biden, they look at the complete mess of Joe Biden. And they're like, well, is this what you wanted? I mean, basically America collapsing. I mean, is this a good thing for the world? I mean, it's only going to enable China. I mean, which is, you know.
Well, it's interesting too, Richard. I'll say on a small level, like people aren't frightened anymore. Like I got my hair cut yesterday by Lisa Locks. She cut my hair about 4 months ago and she does it. She wants to do it for free because she loves what Michael and I are doing on this platform and she won't take any money for it. And I told her last time, I said, look, Lisa, if you want, we'll publicize it. We'll publicize it. And she said, oh no, I better not. Just in case. And I understood that. I said, look, I totally get it. I understand your fear. And she said to me yesterday, please just say who I am. I don't care anymore. Let them know. So I'd say, Lisa Locks, look her up, Google her. And if you want your hair cut, she won't discriminate. She doesn't care who you are. She's got a great little studio there and she'll cut your hair and give you a fantastic
Let's put her
service.
on the page. Let's put her on the page.
Yeah, put her on the page. And that's the difference. She said it to me, you know? Yeah. She's not frightened.
People on the side that we know, you know.
Guys, our lovely friend Heather is having a ball in the comments, and I think we need to placate her by all sending her one of our t-shirts. I think she would really enjoy that. So I'm happy if I ever get a t-shirt that I'll send one to her. What do you reckon? We send her a t-shirt.
Send me a private message to my page with your address, Heather. I wouldn't want it to be out publicly, but send it to me to my page. I will send you a Good People Break Bad Law t-shirt.
It's probably Dan Andrews.
Dance
He's
fiddle
sitting there on
pots,
tab
yeah.
going,
He could be, he could be trans online. Not there's anything wrong with that. You know?
Yeah, it is good.
He might be a
We
big
must
fan of
really-
this show, under an alias.
We just got to keep loving each other. We just got to keep loving each
But
other.
I think they do, and there's other people emerging constantly. People approaching us, going, "Look, I do this. What can I do to help? I do web design." Like the guy that did who's getting our webpage together, he did it in a day. He said, "If you got it," I said, "I've got all these people want to help." He goes, "I'll just do it." And he gets back the next day, it's done. He says, "Just start filling it in."
The movement is
and it's
coalescing, and it is a new movement to some extent. So, and that we are the new counterculture. You've said this, and Topher said it tonight, and I've heard that from many other people. We are the new counterculture, and we're the rebels. You know what I mean? And there's something the underdogs, and there's something appealing about that to everybody. You know what I mean? And I think we'll even win over people who might now, at the moment, support the traditional narrative, because the longer this goes on, the more people realize it's bullshit, mate. It's a control psyop, a top-down control psyop. That's gone on far too long, and I think the longer it goes on, the more people will realize it. Four vaccines a year, is that what they're planning to do? I mean, people aren't going to like that.
I'm going to show you this young guy here. So this young guy has joined us, and these two young men. So this young man here, he's the one I saw doing the free hugs in the crowd. He's been coming up, supporting us.
Daniel.
Thanks, Mark. He's terrific. And then this guy is a young Christian. He's coming up, looks fantastic. He's refusing to take it. And I think basically, as more young people see the courage of these young people, they're going to go, I want a part of this. I want to go with them, because you guys are a mob of this. Now, but amongst us, we do have a problem with Nazis. There is, and we have to remove the Nazi element. And I keep trying to get rid of this Nazi, but he keeps coming back.
Oh, no. Jerry.
Hey, Jerry. That joke never gets old, man. It just never gets old.
Jerry.
Oh, hang on.
Before we say hi to Jerry, I want to say Jerry posted a photograph of himself and Rukshan, who's Sri Lankan heritage, driving out to Ballarat in preparation for our protest that we did out there, which was a wonderful day. And he posted a photograph of the two of them, and I reposted it to my page, and I said, "Look at these Nazis. They've got to be stopped." It horrifies me to see, Jerry, that you still have not been stopped. What's going on, Jerry?
It's hard to stop people. Like I just tuned in when you were talking about the fact that we own the street.
Yeah.
And this stand from the progressive, the American terminology, like you put it.
Can you speak a little closer to your microphone, Jerry?
Sorry?
You're a little quiet. Can you speak a little closer to your microphone?
Yeah, so I was trying to say, I picked up from where Topper was talking about, when he was talking about the progressive thinking that they own the street all these years. Now it stands against them. It is us now who own the street.
Yeah.
And because of that, they want to scare people like me to call white supremacists, neo-Nazis, so that we can pull out of it. And when I pull out this and look out of it, they say, "Oh, see, we told you who they are. They didn't mean it." But now that we mean what we're doing and we're in wholeheartedly with our heart, they're actually scared.
Oh, his internet's dropped out. Yeah, his internet was pretty patchy.
You might have to get another internet connection, JQ.
Yeah. What he was saying was gold, though. So for anyone that missed it, he was talking about the fact that people attacked our sort of protest movement as being a bunch of neo-Nazis. And then with people who like Rukshan and people like him actually being a part of this movement, now the establishment is scared. There we go. Here he is. He's back.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Much better. Yep.
All right. I have to hold my telephone closer to me.
Yeah, close.
So what I was trying to say is that what Topperfield said, that the left used to think that they own all the protests. They own the street. They own everything about disadvantaged people. That's what they think they were. Until this turn, they are now being shown to be the enemies of the people. And when the people that they thought were actually quiet became their victim, we couldn't hold it anymore. And we took over, and many of the left wing, many of the progressive supporters are joining us. If I can show you the DM, the direct messages I get in my inbox, in the Western suburb here where I am, for people whom their grandparent has been been made to believe that the Labour Party is good for them. Now they're waking up. And they're telling me, Jerry, thank you very much for speaking out. They never have anybody tell them the way we are telling it to them.
That's true.
And I can tell you, in 2022 will be a bigger year for us.
Yeah.
We have not yet started the war. The war has just begun. The political war has just begun.
Totally agree.
Yeah, look, I think it's basically, I mean, I don't know who said it, but it's basically the globalists and their kind of allies, so to speak, versus humanity. And essentially the agenda the globalists wish to inflict upon humanity is not popular with anybody. So
It was
essentially
me
the
who
majority
said
of,
that, Richard. It was me.
Sorry? It was
me
Damo.
who said that. Yeah, definitely.
Damo. So, you know, I think, you know, we're going to see a unity of people from around the world who are going to be supportive of this agenda, because who wants to be ruled by this minuscule elite that wishes to enslave us in many different ways? And obviously at the moment it's through this medical tyranny.
Can I say, this isn't the first time this has
Exactly
happened.
what I said.
There
isn't,
are
no.
people who are filling their heads with fear of, oh, this is like this unprecedented war on freedom. The elite's trying to control the normal people, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, the technology involved is unprecedented. Of course it is. We've got technology today that we didn't have 50 years ago, 100 years ago. But this is an ongoing war. We're not the first people to face this war. This was, you know, the 11th century, the 12th century in England. This was the French Revolution. This was the American Revolution. This was revolutions around the world that we've seen time and time again, where a small number of people believe themselves to be qualified to rule over the ignorant masses. And this is a battle that has been going on in country upon country non-stop.
Since you dot.
At any given moment in history, there was somewhere in the world that was fighting this war. It has never stopped. And it's come to us now, right?
It's like you say, Topher, they never had the technological means that they've got at their disposal now.
Correct. They didn't have the QR codes and the check-in and the databases and the cameras and these sorts of things. That's new. I acknowledge that. But the motive and the war that we're fighting is exactly the same. But listen, that technology is also available to us. We're using cameras. We're using social media. We're using encrypted messaging apps. That technology that they are using to try and oppress us is also available to us in our pushback.
But it's on their platforms, though, isn't it? It's on their platforms, and that's a real danger for us. That's a real danger for us.
I mean, you go to something like Signal, right? Which I have contacts in counterterrorism, and they tell me that they can crack everything except Signal. They can't get into Signal, right? That's the one platform that they cannot get into. They can get into Telegram. They cannot get into Signal. At any given moment in time, there are options available to us. You look at the protests in Hong Kong against the Chinese government. They were communicating with each other. They were holding flash mobs of hundreds of thousands of people that would come together at the last minute because they were just sending out messages on social media. The technology
ultimately unsuccessful. Ultimately
unsuccessful. Okay, but again, I make the point, when you're on the defensive, when you are, when the aggressor is moving against you, it's going to be a couple of years before the counteroffensive really starts in earnest. Now, unfortunately, that was too long for them. They couldn't actually maintain the tempo. They couldn't keep up the fight for that long. And unfortunately, yes, Hong Kong does look like a lost cause. In our case, I don't think we're anywhere near a lost cause at this moment in time. And our counteroffensive is just about to begin. So don't get disillusioned by the technology. Yes, they've got cameras pointing at you. Yes, they've got databases and QR codes and everything else. But you know what? We've got cameras pointed at them. And we've got social media that is getting the message out in ways that were not possible 20 years ago. That the same technology is available to us.
And we also have this. I wrote a piece called The Rise of the Australian Spiritual Warrior. Look at this image. This is an extraordinary image. And I'll talk about it beforehand. It's taken one of the protests. It's in front of St. Paul's Cathedral. St. Paul has a big thing, all refugees welcome. There's a line of police in front of it. And then there's a young man standing in front of it doing this. There he is there, if you can see him. And what he's holding up there is a crucifix. That's what I wrote about.
Wow.
Now, the courage of this thing, I wrote about him. Now, when I finally met him, he's an atheist. His parents are atheists. He's grown up as an atheist. He's lost everything. And now he's become the spiritual warrior. And he goes up and he sticks this thing in the face of police. And he says that's what he's fighting for. It's the right fight. And he's not alone. I go around and talk to people in the march if I can to do interviews with them. another woman was holding up a Bible quote, and I asked, "What religion are you from?" She goes, "I'm an atheist. I've been an atheist all my life, but now suddenly I've had everything stripped away, and I had nothing. I found God, and now here I am as this." So it's extraordinary.
Wow.
This is what I talk about. It's not that I'm sort of going back to any church. I don't know who that is.
Whose phone is that? Come
Turn your
on,
phone
who
off.
didn't turn off their phone?
Michael.
It's probably
It's
Heather.
Michael's. I can tell it's Michael's.
Probably Heather.
John, you know, who
It'll be
knows?
Heather trying to give you her
I
T-shirt.
love the way
That
I
Andrew's
wonder who
going,
that
"You
is. I
guys
wonder
haven't
who
got
that
to
is.
shut it down. How long are you going for?"
Hey, listen, while you sort that out, I've got to talk to Jerry. Hey, Jerry,
Yes.
mate, you are more of an Aussie than 100 other Aussies that I've met in the last few days. Fair dinkum, buddy. You are just awesome.
Yep.
You are actually the reason I joined tonight, Graham.
Oh, thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, they told
Yeah, more than
Mike
Damo,
I need
that's
to
for sure.
join. Told me about
You know what's
I need to
beautiful?
join because you actually inspired all of us. The move you took after 50-something years in your airline work,
Mm.
and you came out. I watched your videos a few months back, and I said I need to come and join. I was feeling unwell for the last 2 days, but I told Michael I need to join to just come and say thank you very much for what you've done.
Oh, Jerry, look, thank you. You've just made the whole resignation from Qantas worthwhile. That's so
Beautiful.
good, buddy. I really appreciate, you've come from where you've come from. You've been here, 7 years?
5 years
Is it
now,
7
going to 6.
Nearly 6 years, and you're out there fighting for this country when a lot of our countrymen are sitting at home watching My Kitchen Stinks.
Yeah, I mean,
You know-
people always say nationalism is something that unites people. You know what I mean? It unites people under a common goal. We're all Australians. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a racial thing. This is something that is, do you believe in the freedoms of this country? Or don't you? And many, what you call Australians who might have been here for generations and generations, don't seem to give a shit about it at all. And they're sitting home, QR coding everywhere where they go as if nothing has happened. Quite happy
Well, I
that we're now
said
living in an apartheid society.
I said that one
One
last
of the
week.
reasons why I said
Your
something last week.
grandfather, the
I said
freedom
something
that
last
your
month, I said-
grandfathers fought for, you gave away so you could have a latte.
Mm.
That's the truth.
Mm.
That's the God honest truth. That's how disgusting it is. And they look at us with condescension, and condescension is basically the cover for cowardice. And that's what it is. You gave away all the freedoms we have, every shrine in town, so you could have a coffee, sit down in a cafe and have a coffee.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Next door.
On Saturday, if you can hear me, on Saturday we dropped one of the Saturdays last few weeks. We dropped to Cheverton. I dropped with Michael and Damien. Topperfield came on his own, but when I came back, I was in the car with Damien's son. And if I can tell you, he's a 15-year-old young man. He understands
15.
my country more than the South Sudanese that were born here.
If I heard that correctly, he said there was a 15-year-old man who understood Jerry's country more than people from South Sudan.
Exactly, Damien's son. He knows history.
my son.
I told him
Yeah, right.
I told him I'm from South Sudan. He asked me how old are you? I said I'm 40. He said no, your mother been born in Sudan, not in South Sudan. Because he knows South Sudan just became an independent country a few years ago.
Mm.
This is a free-thinking young man raised in a family that want to educate children, not the one in a government school that is indoctrinating them to becoming victim and being oppressed.
Victim culture, yeah.
And I said in my speech, the one where you actually taught off, the one where you saw and then you invited me. I said Australia is actually the real United Nations of Australia. Because we have people from different nations who have been oppressed in our countries. We came to this country because of freedom.
And now it's been
And
taken
now
away.
the government come up again and try to dictate us. We stand up for it.
A few
And we
years
stand
ago,
up against it.
a boat of refugees, I think, sunk off Christmas Island, and the water was full of dead bodies. And they sent that imagery went around the world, and even though it went around the world, people still got on boats literally that day and the next day and the next day, and still risked it to come here for freedom.
Exactly.
We've had Kurdish and people on here who talk about how in the cross to freedom, they've come across that lost friends and they still try to escape to freedom because that's how precious freedom is. And I think one of the greatest assets we have in the freedom movement is people from countries that have been oppression, Polish,
Eastern European, yeah.
Eastern Europeans, the Africans like yourself that stand up, the people who know it, and they're here standing up, fighting with us, going, we have to fight. I'm going to do a photograph of a Chilean guy who comes to every march. He's got a huge scar where he was shot by the Chilean police, and he was saved by an underground doctor who saved his life. And he's going to come and show it because he says that's what it is.
Wow.
It doesn't stop. They just get worse and worse and worse. You have to fight it now.
You have to stop it now.
It won't naturally get better.
Yeah, but the victim mentality has been weaponized by the state, so they've made it worth money. It's worthwhile to play that victim card, particularly for someone from another country or whatever.
You know, the sad story is that if I was to get a hold of a Boeing and start people smuggling out of Australia, I'd make a fortune flying people out of this country. And we're talking about a country that people drown to get to. You know, we forget, I think it was 400,000 Vietnamese drowned trying to get to Australia at the end of the regime in Vietnam. We forget all that. We forget so much about how valuable this country has been seen by people overseas. And, you know, what's going on in Austria at the moment is frightening the daylights out of me. I think they're going to supersede. Yeah, Austria,
what's happening?
Well, they're talking about fining everybody who's not jabbed over there $4,000 a month for a start. And they're also talking about hiring mercenaries to track down and capture people who haven't been jabbed.
So that's already heading down a Nazi path, and obviously
just to show you other positive things we have. This photograph here, this man here, he's Polish. He has a Polish name that I can never pronounce, but he's always fighting. But this photograph is taken by a world-renowned street photographer. He's done the Hong Kong protests and other protests. A Welsh guy called John Clark. We started with his images, and he's going to allow us to use for free our images throughout the thing. Any images he can for memes, he goes, you use them. We've got an age photographer that I won't mention. He's saying the same. He goes, you can use them. So, and we've got everybody's taking photos, but amongst them, you've got great artists who are going, you can use them for free. There's a painter, Topher, he wants to get in contact with you too. There's a fine arts painter who wants to paint a painting and have enshrine the people with it to sort of, start creating myths, because that's what we need. So I think, and all these people are coming in, they never talk about money. They're just talking, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it. The fight for freedom is it. It's not fighting for Australia. The fight for freedom has really begun. All that did when we lost the bill, instead of destroying it, it just went knocked to the canvas, and then we got back up and said, okay, look, come on.
I think the freedom movement
we're really going to be harder to take down next time.
Let's talk about this too, because the freedom movement is not only an attack upon Australia. Hoodie mentioned Austria, and it's an attack on many Western countries where freedom was almost taken for granted. I think one of the reasons we're under attack is because I think we've grown lazy and we've grown decadent. You know, we've just gotten to accept this freedom thing. It didn't really matter to us. You know, we just accepted it. But now it's under threat. But not only can we defeat this totalitarianism here, but we can defeat the totalitarianism around the world that happens in third world countries, in Africa and Southeast Asia and China. I mean, because this freedom movement, you know, can not only happen here, but it can happen globally. And you know, we can, and that's what they call the Great Awakening, I guess, as opposed to the Great Reset. That's when we throw the yoke of this venal elite off humanity and enter a new age, a new dawn.
We're so heavily bureaucratized, aren't we? There's so much bureaucracy, and that's what we're struggling with. And that's what we talk about before. And we talk about the left still pretending that they're the victims, because that's the pretense of playing the victim still. That's where you get the funding and you get the money from. And until we can attack that institutionalized bureaucratization of our culture, we're stuffed, because there's money in those hills, and it plays to the politicians to pander to it, because that's where the money comes from. And this huge amount of taxation money goes into perpetuating it. Absolutely.
Here's beautiful. Look at this. Adelaide Zoo, just a sec. Adelaide Zoo went to double jabbed. Now they're struggling to stay open.
Get woke, go broke.
Were they jabbing the animals, or
obviously, if you're not a lion, you're very concerned that you might end up in the lion cage as a meal to sustain the lion. So you wouldn't want to be a rabbit in that thing at the moment.
Jerry, you wanted to.
Jerry?
Yes, I just want to say that the current totalitarian rule coming up now is actually targeting the Western civilization.
Yeah.
I made some few research in the first few weeks when the Omicron's variant came out. I've read articles on how the Asian countries responded to Africa and how the Western world countries, the Western civilization countries, responded to Africa. There was a kind of geopolitical way of things we're aiming.
We've lost him.
He's making a good point there. He's making a very good point. Because actually, countries like Africa, it was not a problem. I mean, they've only got a very small vaccination rate, and COVID is hardly a problem in many African countries. You know what I mean? I made a documentary in Uganda, which is just below South Sudan, where that gentleman was from. The people there were so beautiful and extraordinary. Let's listen to this fellow. He's great.
All right, Jerry, do you want to finish what you were saying?
Yeah, let me finish. Yeah, I think this problem is my internet. What I was trying to say that what is happening for the last few years is targeted mostly against the Western civilization, which is the Christianity, the Judeo-Christian values that has made this world come to where it is. A few weeks ago, where I live here, we requested for a community gathering and a church prayers by our community. The council refused to give us a go. I walked out today and I saw a lot of Islamic communities having the same celebration of more than 30 people doing it. And there's nothing to be said about that. So what I'm trying to say that the totalitarian is not targeting any other country. Africa is more free now. But the Western world is where the freedom has been pinned down.
True.
Yeah.
Before I joined live here, I talked to a single mom. She's a single mom of 4 kids. She has been a single mom for a very long time. She had the first job, she had the second job, and she was very sick. So I asked her, what is going on with you? She said, if I was this sick for the rest of my life, I would have never raised my kid. And she said, 100% she was certain that it is the vaccine that has weakened her. And she told me she's not going to take the booster shot anymore because they wanted to kill, according to her, she said, they wanted to kill me. She said she has never worked again since she got vaccinated. And if she was like this before, she would have never raised her own kids.
Yes.
So
after the fall,
to say that there are voices coming up there with what you, Michael, are doing, Topherfield and others are doing. We are waking people up. They may not come and show their faces like us, but they are waking up.
I mean, what should be happening after the fall of the?
Proud of ourselves. We need to continue doing what we're doing.
What after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the fall of the Soviet? Okay. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and the fall of the Soviet Union, we should have been exporting Western-style freedoms to Africa, to China, to Southeast Asia, to the Arab world. I mean, obviously, America attempted some kind of vain attempt to bring freedom to the Arab world, and that turned into a disaster because I don't think it was ever their intention to do that. But what's happened is that now we see that the actual freedom of Western countries itself is under threat, under attack. And so, you know what I mean? Rather than exporting freedom, our own freedom is being taken away. And I think this is absolutely scandalous.
And it's happened from within. It's happened from within the
culture. Of course it's from within, because of the enemy.
It has.
The enemy within.
Can I say this? There is an amazing thing happening right now where I am finding my people at a level and at a depth that was never possible before, where, people are sort of, Australian, yay. Like, I go for Daniel Ricciardo in the Formula One. Why? Because he's an Australian. Have I ever met the bloke? No. Right? Do I really actually care? No. But he's the Aussie, so I go for him. But I've actually moved deeper than that as a result of all of the nonsense going on. And I'm finding a new tribe at a far deeper level than just, you're an Aussie? Great. Okay, I'll barrack for you. No. Oh, you stand for freedom? You've been at the protests, or even if you couldn't be at the protests, you've done what you could do to stand for freedom. Well, then you are in my tribe now. I've got family members that we barely speak to. There were family members that didn't show up to Christmas today, right? Because we're not on speaking terms anymore as a result of all of this nonsense that's been going on. But on the flip side, I am finding people, some people that are new to my life that I didn't know before, like a lot of people on the screen right now, and other people that were in my life, but I didn't really, they were just kind of there. They were friends. They were in that sort of broader circle of friends. And now that they're standing and I'm standing, we're finding common ground and we're becoming this tribe that I think is far more powerful than just I'm an Aussie or I'm a this or I'm a that.
This or that.
Irrespective of skin color, irrespective of background, where you were born, I don't give a rat's. If you stand for freedom, you're in my tribe. And I think that if we can keep this going for another year or another 2 years, this tribe of freedom-loving people, we are going to reshape Australia and, broadly speaking, reshape the West in ways that were never foreseen by the people that are trying to take our freedoms off us.
I mean, it's a
think gonna
historical
backfire
destiny.
on them.
And
It's
we
a
can
historical
offer,
destiny.
we can offer you something like, say, with Graham, from your inaugural speech, Graham. Basically, what you do, you basically in the thing, even though you were basically telling it all, you were given absolution. Do you know what I mean? And that's what people are doing. There's a great guy who works under marches. The great young guy Travis. He's grown up in basically reform homes. He's done it really, really tough, and he's under attack now from some of the organisers. But what he does is, if he's a march and he's in charge of the spruiking, he's brilliant, and he's there. He's marching. He's leading the way. He's found great purpose in his life, and that's what we can offer people in this. You don't worry so much about materialism and other things that don't matter. You're fighting for this greater cause, and there's a great power in that. And you join a tribe, and the tribe gives you a sense of real power too. I mean, I can't go. I can only go a day or so before having to go and meet up with some of my tribe just to be with them.
Not only do we have to secure our own freedom, and obviously it's under attack at the moment, but again, export the freedom that we enjoy to the rest of the world. And there is no reason, technology right now, that we can't do that. So let's do it. That's all I wanted to say.
I don't know if that's going to be successful.
Well, it's going to be a struggle, believe me, because there are the evil powers. Believe me. I mean, we're talking about good always wins, love always wins. I don't think so. I think evil wins a lot, far too often. And unless we understand evil, we're not going to defeat what we're up against, because it's incredibly complex evil, and the way evil people think, the level of cunning, the level of what's the word I'm looking for?
Also, some people are enjoying. I had
malevolence.
We had the meeting the other day. You'd left, but she wanted me to interview her, and she was going, all these people are doing bad things. They've been abused when they're young, and they just need healing. They just need healing. And then I just pointed out that what if they don't? What if they're actually enjoying being cool? What if they're enjoying it? What if it's just part of their personality and the state's allowing them to do it? That's that 30% that are relishing what's happening. They love condescending. They love bullying. And so we can't fix the problem unless we clearly identify the soldiers and the enemy and the problem that we're up against.
We do need to identify the enemy.
People that need healing, then we're fighting with one hand tied behind our back.
Agreed.
I need to jump in. Mandy Rag is actually watching. I just saw his comments scroll through the real-time comments. So, Mandy, in case you missed it earlier, we are playing your incredible song Lions at the end. Oh, you did? Okay, great. We're playing your song Lions at the end of the show. What a freaking triumph. What a creative triumph. If you're watching now, stick around to the end of the show. You want to hear Mandy's work. And just, I need to do some self-promotion here. That is a part that Mandy wrote that song for Battleground Melbourne, the documentary that's coming out soon. Go to battlegroundmelbourne.com, put your email address in, and you'll be kept up to date as we approach the launch date on the 13th of January. You'll be kept in the loop with everything going on. But we've got Mandy's song coming up at the very end of tonight's show. So stick around for that. It is going to be worth it. I promise you.
And when is that, by the way? I've been on nearly 2 hours, and the show was going for about an hour before I came on, wasn't it?
Thinking the same. We're not, it's open-ended, so I'm a bit roasted, so I might move.
Wrap it up, baby.
Graham, is there anything you'd like to say to the Australian public? And Graham, thanks for agreeing to do this today. And I feel really honoured to have you on, man. It was a great show the last time we had, but it's great to have you back on.
Well, it's honoured to be a part of this, and And all I can say is that compassion and humility wins. And I don't agree with Richard. Evil will always lose. It may not have lost yet, but it will lose. Let me tell you.
I
We
hope
are in
so.
a battle.
Obviously.
We are in a battle between good and evil.
I agree
And
with that.
good will win. And good will ultimately win. And those who side with evil are going to be gnashing their teeth, and they're going to be saying, why didn't somebody tell me? What I want to say to Australia is we are an amazing nation. We truly are an amazing nation. And what's happening now is showing us our cause. It's showing us our ability to really be living in the spirit of the Anzacs. And we mustn't give up. We've talked a bit tonight about, we may have lost this part of the war. We haven't lost anything. We've gained every time we've stood. Every time we've stood in the shadow of our own conscience, we've gained, we've won. We continue to win. And there's a lot of generals that realised that they had to lose at the odd battle here and there to win the war.
Yeah.
But this war is on, and it will be won with love and compassion. And we need to cut out any other extraneous sources. Focus on what really works, and focus on the people who are wanting us to be their voice. And if we can do that, we can truly win. And at the end of the day, we've got to start developing faith in something other than ourselves. And when we do that, we're on a winning course. So I just want to say to all those people, I've been watching the comments. Man, there's some hurting people out there. Let me tell you guys, look at my face.
Tonight. I can't keep up with them.
People can only drive you crazy if you give them the keys. Love the people who are hurting you. That gives you the power back. Forgive them. Understand where they're coming from, and keep standing in your own truth, because at the end of the day, that's what will sustain you. So it's been an honour to be part of this. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. I'm really glad we did it. I want us to stay positive. I want us to stay focused. And for goodness sake, please get to the governor's mansions. I've just got a feeling that that's going to help. We haven't got much time.
Topher, I'm going to let you take us out into Mandy's song. But before you do, I just want to say, and I've been wanting to say this for a while, and I've been saying this to people, we're actually at war now. We're at war. There's a war against the people. And one thing I'm learning constantly and trying to write about and realizing now myself, in times of war gives you one choice. You can either bring out the best in you, or it can bring out the worst in you. And that's your choice. And what I'm finding is I'm being attracted to, not sexually, to people like Damien and yourself, because it's really bringing out the lion in some people, including Richard, who's now turning up quite regularly at the things, and Graham, and these wonderful people behind me, and so many others. I feel blessed to be a part of it. And life is somehow hard and wearing, but there's an adrenaline to it, because you really feel you found the calling, and so many things don't matter anymore. So, but it's a choice of where you want to be at the moment. You want to be this. Yeah, anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Richard or Damien, do you want to say anything? Damien, don't say get the jab.
I've used that one. I've used that one.
Well, I mean, I agree with. I mean, I do think the good will win in the end. When I mentioned evil, I just think we should just try and understand evil. I mean, you say that to forgive it. I just think you need to understand it, and you need to understand cunning and malevolence and things like that, and that will help you defeat it. That's all I wanted to say. But I basically agree with what he was saying. And Topher, take us out.
And I don't want to open up too big a flank, because sometimes at the end of the show I suddenly open up this really big flank. Ask Graham something really specific. I'm not going to do that. We've been nearly going for 3 hours.
Sorry, Damien, what were you saying?
That's right. I just want to say.
Yep, he's gone.
You're making it a bigger flank. I was going to be really precise and short. I just want to say.
Mute him.
There's Samantha Ratnam. Samantha Ratnam's still in her paddock. That's good.
No, go on, David.
I just want to say,
not touching anything.
No, Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas. Because
Merry Christmas.
Today.
Absolutely.
Someone
Merry
was born
Christmas.
today.
Support Cafe Lockdown. Donate to these two rat bags so they can keep doing what they're doing.
That gives us hope for an eternal
Yeah.
future, not just a temporal, but an eternal future. And he was born
100%.
today. And just let's remember.
Amen.
that.
Merry
And then,
Christmas.
okay, so to go up, I'm going to go Topher. I feel really honoured to be a part of your universe, buddy. A big fan. So to be here like this it's amazing. The fact that you finally, I've had a cigar. Buy cigars on Topher. The cigar, there's an experience. Getting me
Sounds
to sit
good.
there for now doing nothing, sucking on a big cigar is never happened before, but I did it. Anyway,
And-
Topher.
and be honest, Michael, it changed your life, didn't it?
Very
It
Castro, very Castro. I love it.
Yeah. Listen, people always get into me in the comments about the cigars. Listen, come and sit with me sometime and have a cigar with me so that I can teach you what it's actually all about. It will change your life. But tonight is about something so much bigger than any of us. It is about the birth of Christ, and it is about that eternal hope that comes through what Jesus Christ did for us as a result of him coming down and walking as a man. And I think it would be crass of me to promote the documentary or do anything else, but to acknowledge that tonight is about something bigger than any of the five of us here, any of the thousands of people that have watched tonight. This is about something eternal. And if the eternal side of what's happened today, of what we remember today, is something that you're not familiar with, reach out to someone, reach out to my page, reach out to Hoodie, reach out to your local church, and actually try and wrap your brain around what it is that happened today, because it changed the course of human history. So much deeper than Daniel Andrews, so much deeper than the coronavirus. This is the deepest thing that has happened, the most profound thing that has happened in human history. So reach out and wrap your brain around it. You may disagree, that's fine, but at least take the time to wrap your brain around what happened. Now, to take us out, we have a song by Mandy Ragg, W-R-A-G-G. That's her last name, Mandy Ragg. Incredibly talented artist. I gave her a brief on what I needed for the documentary Battleground Melbourne, battlegroundmelbourne.com. Go there, put your email address in. We'll keep you up to date. I gave her a brief that gave her a lot of freedom, gave her a lot of room to move, to make creative choices. And damn, did she make some good creative choices. And we've got her song for you tonight. So I don't think there is anything that I can say that is going to top what Mandy Ragg has made in this song. So Michael, would you please do the honors? Mandy Ragg is going to take us out tonight, and you can look forward to the launch of Battleground
Sounds
Melbourne
right.
on January the 13th. Have a good night.
Good night, gentlemen. Good night, Australia.
Amen.
God bless everyone.
It's all
God bless.
okay till it comes to you, when what you believe unravels before you.
Roll.
Feel the fear, sense the lies, the more they shame, the more you hide. They say